to 2%. Supply of manpower services is proposed to be specifically brought within the ambit of payment to contractors for the purpose of TDS to avoid ambiguity. Thus, TDS on these services will be at the rate of either 1% or 2% only. I propose a scheme for small taxpayers, wherein a rule-based automated process will enable obtaining a lower or nil deduction certificate instead of filing an application with the assessing officer. For the ease of taxpayer holding securities in multiple companies, I propose to enable depositories to accept Form 15G or Form 15H from the investor and provide it directly to various relevant companies. I propose to extend time available for revising returns from 31st December to up to 31st March with the payment of a nominal fee. I also propose to stagger the timeline for filing of tax returns. Individuals with ITR 1 and ITR 2 returns will continue to file till 31st July, and non-audit business cases or trusts are proposed to be allowed time till 31st August. TDS on sale of immovable property by a non-resident is proposed to be deducted and deposited through resident buyers and his or her PAN-based challan instead of requiring a TAN, which is a temporary accounting number. To address practical issues of small taxpayers like students, young professionals, tech employees, relocated NRIs, and such others, I propose to introduce a one-time 6-month foreign asset disclosure scheme for these taxpayers to disclose income or assets below a certain size. This scheme would be applicable for two categories of taxpayers, namely A, who did not disclose their overseas income or assets, and B, who disclosed their overseas income and or paid due tax but could not declare the asset acquired. For category A, the limit of undisclosed income or asset is proposed to be up to 1 crore rupees. They need to pay 30% of fair market value of asset or 30% of undisclosed income as tax and 30% as additional income tax in lieu of penalty, and would thereby get immunity from prosecution. For category B, asset value is proposed to be up to 5 crore rupees. Here, immunity from both penalty and prosecution will be available with a payment of fee of 1 lakh rupees. Rationalizing penalty and prosecution. Multiplicity of proceedings are hindrance to the ease of doing business. I propose to integrate assessment and penalty proceedings by way of a common order for both. There will be no interest liability on the taxpayer on the penalty amount for the period of appeal before the first appellate authority, irrespective of the outcome of appeal process. Further, quantum of prepayment is being reduced from 20% to 10% and will continue to be calculated only on core tax demand. As an additional measure for reducing litigation, I propose to allow taxpayers to update their returns even after reassessment proceedings have been initiated, and an additional 10% tax rate over and above the rate applicable for the relevant year. The assessing officer will then use only this updated return in his proceedings. There is already a framework for immunity from penalty and prosecution in the cases of underreporting. I propose to apply this framework for immunity to misreporting too. However, in such a case, the taxpayer will need to pay 100% of the tax amount as an additional income tax over and above the tax and interest due. Penalties for certain technical defaults such as failure to get accounts audited, non-furnishing of transfer pricing audit report, and default in furnishing statement for financial transactions are proposed to be converted into fee. I propose to rationalize prosecution framework under Income Tax Act while maintaining a careful balance for deterrence in some serious offence. Non-production of books of account and documents and requirement of TDS payment where payment is made in kind are being decriminalized. Further, minor offences will attract fine only. The remaining prosecutions will be graded commensurate with the quantum of offence. They will entail only simple imprisonment with maximum imprisonment reduced to 2 years and power to courts to convert even those into fines. There is no penalty. There is no penalty presently for non-disclosure of non-immovable foreign assets with aggregate value less than 20 lakh rupees. I propose to also provide them with immunity from prosecution with retrospective effect from 1/10/2024. Cooperatives. Deduction is already allowed to a primary cooperative society engaged in supplying milk, oilseeds, fruits or vegetables raised or grown by its members. I propose to extend this deduction to also include supply of cattle feed and cotton seed produced by its members. I propose to allow inter-cooperative society dividend income as deduction under the new tax regime to the extent it is further distributed to its members. I further propose to allow exemption for a period of 3 years to dividend income received by a notified national cooperative federation on their investments made in companies up to 31/1/2026. This exemption would be allowed only for dividends further distributed to its member cooperatives. Supporting IT sector as India's growth engine. India is a global leader in software development services, IT-enabled services, knowledge process outsourcing services, and contract R&D services relating to software development. These businesses and their segments are quite interconnected with each other. All these services are proposed to be clubbed under a single category of information technology services with a common safe harbor margin of 15.5% applicable to all. The threshold for availing safe harbor for IT services is being enhanced substantially from 300 crore rupees to 2,000 crore rupees. Safe harbor for IT services shall be approved by an automated rule-driven process without any need for tax officer to examine and accept the application. Once applied by an IT services company, the same safe harbor can be continued for a period of 5 years at a stretch at its choice. For IT services companies who want to conclude advanced pricing agreement, APA, I propose to fast-track unilateral APA process for IT services and endeavor to conclude it within a period of 2 years. The period of 2 years can be extended by a further period of 6 months on taxpayers' request. I propose to extend the facility of modified returns available to the entity entering APA to its associated entities also. Attracting global business and investment. Recognizing the need to enable critical infrastructure and boost investment in data centers, I propose to provide tax holiday till 2047 to any foreign company that provides cloud services to customers globally by using data center services from India. It will, however, need to provide services to Indian customers through an Indian reseller entity. I also propose to provide a safe harbor of 15% on cost in case the company providing data center services from India is a related entity. To harness the efficiency of just-in-time logistics for electronic manufacturing, I propose to provide safe harbor to non-residents for component warehousing in a bonded warehouse at a profit margin of 2% of the invoice value. The resultant tax of about 0.7% will be much lower than in competing jurisdictions. To provide fillip to toll manufacturing in India, I propose to provide exemption from income tax for 5 years to any non-resident who provides capital goods, equipment, or tooling to any toll manufacturer in a bonded zone. To encourage vast pool of global talent to work in India for a longer period of time, I propose to provide exemption to global, non-India sourced income of a non-resident expert for a stay period of 5 years under notified schemes. I propose to provide exemption from minimum alternate tax, the MAT, to all non-residents who pay tax on presumptive basis. Tax administration. I propose to constitute a joint committee of Ministry of Corporate Affairs and Central Board of Direct Taxes for incorporating the requirements of income computation and disclosure standards, the ICDS, in the Indian Accounting Standards, IND AS itself. Separate accounting requirement based on ICDS will be done away with from the tax year 27-28. To support Prime Minister Modi's vision of homegrown accounting and advisory firms to become global leaders, I propose to rationalize the definition of accountant for the purposes of safe harbor rules. Other tax proposals. Change in taxation of buyback was brought in to address the improper use of buyback route by promoters. In the interest of minority shareholders, I propose to tax buyback for all types of shareholders as capital gains. However, to disincentivize misuse of tax arbitrage, promoters will pay an additional buyback tax. This will make effective tax 22% for corporate promoters. For non-corporate promoters, the effective tax will be 30%. TCS rate for sellers of specific goods, namely alcoholic liquor, scrap, and minerals, will be rationalized to 2%, and that on tendu leaves will be reduced from 5% to 2%. I propose to raise the STT on futures to 0.05% from the present 0.02%. STT on options premium and exercise of options are both proposed to be raised to 0.15% from the present rate of 0.1% and 0.125% respectively. We reformed the taxation landscape for corporates in 2019 by providing them a simplified regime with lower tax rate so that they could productively focus on business rather than on claim of deductions and exemptions. To encourage companies to shift to the new regime, set off of brought forward MAT credit, minimum alternate tax credit, is proposed to be allowed to companies only in the new regime. Set off using available MAT credit is proposed to be allowed to an extent of 1/4 of the tax liability in the new regime. MAT MAT is proposed to be made final tax. So there will be no further credit accumulation from 1st April 2026. In line with this change, the rate of final tax is being reduced to 14% from the current MAT rate of 15%. The brought forward MAT credit of taxpayers accumulated till 30th March 2026 will continue to be available to them for set-off as above. Indirect taxes. I shall now take up proposals related to indirect taxes. My proposals for customs and central excise aim to further simplify the tariff structure, support domestic manufacturing, promote export competitiveness, and correct inversion in duty. To continue weeding out long-continuing customs duty exemptions, I propose to remove certain exemptions on items which are being manufactured in India or where the imports are negligible. Similarly, to further simplify the process of ascertaining the rate of duty applicable on a particular item, I propose to incorporate certain effective rates in various customs notifications to the tariff schedule itself. I shall now take up sector-specific proposals. Promotion of exports of marine, leather, and textile products. I propose to increase the limit for duty-free imports of specified inputs used for processing seafoods for export from the current 1% to 3% of FOB value of the previous year's export turnover. I also propose to allow duty-free imports of specified inputs, which is currently available for exports of leather or synthetic footwear, to exports of shoe uppers as well. I propose to extend the time period for export of final product from the existing 6 months to 1 year for exporters of leather or textile garments, leather or synthetic footwear, and other leather products. Energy transition and security. I propose to extend the basic customs duty exemption given to capital goods used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for batteries to those used for manufacturing lithium-ion cells for battery energy storage systems also. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on import of sodium antimonate for use in manufacture of solar glass. Nuclear power. I propose to extend the existing basic customs duty exemption on imports of goods required for nuclear power projects till the year 2035 and expand it for all nuclear plants irrespective of their capacity. Critical minerals. It is proposed to provide basic customs duty exemption to the import of capital goods required for the processing of critical minerals in India. Biogas blended CNG. I propose to exclude the entire value of biogas while calculating the central excise duty payable on biogas blended CNG. Civil and defense aviation. I propose to exempt basic customs duty on components and parts required for the manufacture of civilian training and other aircrafts. It is proposed to exempt basic customs duty on raw materials imported for the manufacture of parts of aircraft to be used in maintenance, repair, or overall requirements by units in the defense sector. Electronics. To deepen value addition in the consumer electronics sector, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on specified parts used in the manufacture of microwave ovens. Special economic zone. To address the concerns arising about utilization of capacity by manufacturing units in the special economic zones due to global trade disruptions, I propose as a special one-time measure to facilitate sales by eligible manufacturing units in SEZs to the domestic tariff area at concessional rates of duty. The quantity of such sales will be limited to a prescribed proportion of their exports. Necessary regulatory changes will be undertaken to operationalize the measures while ensuring level playing field for the units working in the DTA. Ease of living. To rationalize the customs duty structure for goods imported for personal use, I propose to reduce the tariff rate on all dutiable goods imported for personal use from 20% to 10%. To provide relief to patients, particularly those suffering from cancer, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on 17 drugs or medicines. I propose also to add 7 more rare diseases for the purposes of exempting import duties on personal imports of drugs, medicines, and food for special medical purposes used in their treatment. Customs process. India's role and share in the global trade is poised for a major leap in line with our ambition and journey towards Vixit Bharat. In this regard, I propose many measures for custom processes to have minimal intervention for smoother and faster movement of goods and greater certainty to the trade. Trust-based systems. I propose to enhance duty deferral period for Tier 2 and Tier 3 authorized economic operators, known as AEOs, from 15 days to 30 days. I propose to provide eligible manufacturer importers the same duty deferral facility. This should encourage them to get themselves accredited as a full-fledged Tier 3 AEO in due course. To provide greater certainty and for better business planning, I propose to extend validity period of advance ruling binding on customs from the present 3 years to 5 years. In the spirit of the whole of government approach, government agencies will be encouraged to leverage AEO accreditation for preferential treatment in clearing their cargo. Regular importers with trusted long-standing supply chains will be recognized in the risk system so that the need for verification of their cargo every time can be minimized. Export cargo using electronic sealing. Export cargo using electronic sealing will be provided through clearance from the factory premises to the ship. For import of goods not needing any compliance, filing of bill of entry by a trusted importer and arrival of goods will automatically notify customs for completing their clearance formalities. This will enable goods to be released immediately on arrival. The customs warehouse framework will be transformed into a warehouse operator-centric system with a self-declarations, electronic tracking, and risk-based audit. These reforms will move away from the current system of officer-dependent approvals and reduce transaction delays and compliance costs. Ease of doing business. Approvals required for cargo clearance from various government agencies will be seamlessly processed through a single and interconnected digital window by the end of the financial year. Processes involved in clearance of food, drugs, plant, and animal and wildlife products, accounting for about 70% of interdicted cargo, will be operationalized on this system by April 2026 itself. For goods not having any compliance requirement, clearance will be done by customs immediately after online registration is completed by the importer, subject to the payment of duty. Customs integrated system will be rolled out in 2 years as a single integrated and scalable platform for all customs processes. Utilization of non-intrusive scanning with advanced imaging and AI technology for risk assessment will be expanded in a phased manner with the objective to scan every container across all the major ports. New export opportunities to support Indian fishermen to fully harness the economic value of marine resources beyond our territorial waters. The following measures will be taken. A. Fish catch by an Indian fishing vessel in exclusive economic zone or on the high seas will be made free of duty. Landing of such fish on foreign port will be treated as export of goods. Safeguards will be put in place to prevent misuse during fish catch, transit, or transshipment. To support aspirations of India's small businesses, artisans, and startups to access global markets through e-commerce, I am pleased to announce complete removal of the current value cap of 10 lakh rupees per consignment on courier exports. In addition, handling of rejected and returned consignments will be improved with effective use of technology for identifying such consignments. I propose to revise provisions governing baggage clearance during international travel to address genuine concerns of passengers. The revised rules will enhance duty-free allowances in line with the present-day travel realities and provide clarity in temporary carriage of goods brought in or taken out. There are honest taxpayers who are willing to settle disputes by paying all their dues, but they get deterred due to negative connotation associated with penalty. They will now be able to close cases by paying an additional amount in lieu of penalty. Honorable Speaker, sir, with this, I commend the budget to this august House. Jai Hind. One and a half hours.
Item number 3, माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी.
Item number 2, sir.
3.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to lay on the table of the following statements under Section 3, 1 of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act of 2003. Medium-term fiscal policy, fiscal policy strategy statement, and macroeconomic framework statement.
Item number 4, माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी.
Sir, with your permission, I move for leave to introduce the Finance Bill 2026.
प्रश्न ये कि विधेयक को पुनर्स्थापित करने की अनुमति प्रदान की जाए. जो सदस्य इस पक्ष में हाँ गए, जो सदस्य विरोध में ना गए, मेरे विचार में निर्णय हाँ वालों के पक्ष में हाँ वालों के पक्ष में अनुमति प्रदान की जाती है. माननीय मंत्री जी, आप विधेयक पूरे स्थापित करें.
Sir, I introduce the bill.
माननीय सदस्य, आपको सूचित किया जाता है कि माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के बजट भाषण की कॉपी पब्लिकेशन काउंटर पर ली जाती है. बजट भाषण और बजट से संबंधित दस्तावेज आपके मोबाइल फोन और मेंबर पोर्टल्स पर ही उपलब्ध है. सभा की कार्रवाई कल सोमवार दिनांक 2 फरवरी 2026 को प्राप्त 11 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's 9th budget, a shorter speech than it has been at some times in the past, less than 90 minutes. And the focus clearly in part A was on a vision statement, words like skilling and innovation dominating that. and then looking at customs duty rationalization in specific sectors, offering various SOPs and benefits potentially to NRIs who wish to invest in India, or foreign companies who wish to invest in specific areas like cloud services, for example. But as you can see, the markets have reacted rather badly to the fact that there is a higher security transaction tax. Markets, BSE, Sensex, in fact, is down by more than 1,000 points. So the markets clearly haven't responded positively to that higher security transaction tax. But let's get in first comments from across the table. Shankar, your first reactions.
I think the budget was split into three parts. One was basically the opening where a lot of the gaps. So I will call this a fill in the blanks budget. So you fill in the gaps in the areas where the domestic economy can be promoted. Fill in the gaps in the areas where probably you might get some foreign exchange, so all the NRI and data center tax holiday and stuff. And the third part is basically in the ease of processes. So income tax rules, customs rule and all. Having said that, I mean, this was far too much minutiae. Somebody should do a word map on how many acronyms are there in the budget, and made me feel like I was listening to a Pranab Mukherjee budget.
First reactions, Dr. Baru.
You know, this is very much in line with Nirmala Sitharaman's 8 budgets so far, which is all about specificities. The big picture clouded by too much detail, because I think the approach of this government has been to show every single segment of society and the economy that we have done something for you. So there are all these small 1,000 crores there, 1,000 crores there, 10,000 crores here, 2,000 crores here. The spending divided into so many sectors. You don't get an idea of what is the total amount being spent. Normally, budgets in the past would tell you that this is the additional demand we are injecting into the economy. This is the total expenditure of the government in coming financial year. So you don't get a big picture view of what is being done in terms of initiatives. And on the customs, again, the old world, we used to have the sector-specific exemptions, too many sector-specific things. If only the finance minister could have said that the average tariff level is being brought down from X to Y. Calculating all these concessions, what is it? Has India become more open in terms of the tariffs, or are we still where we were? Those kind of messages are important for the economy to understand, where is the expenditure going, how much demand can be injected as a result of all these initiatives, and how much openness is there. We don't get a big picture view at all.
I had a friend who just sent me a message saying she should be called Tinker Raman.
Absolutely.
So that's what she's done today.
We are tinkering here.
Rajiv, you want a quick comment? Your first comment?
So I think few encouraging things that I found very important were the emphasis on high-speed railways across the 7 city hubs identified. I think that's a really good step. Then, of course, the expanded budget for the India Semiconductor Mission, the biopharmaceuticals focus, I think all of that is excellent stuff.
Punita.
So while it is very difficult to analyze these consequences of all these little initiatives on the tax side, and that will take a lot of time to do that, at the very high level, based on the speech, I think it's more like going back to the grassroots. Some of these initiatives are very focused, like tourism, medical tourism.
You're setting up rare earth corridors. You're looking at specific areas as well.
Yes, and then Buddhism, promoting Buddhism and cultural centers, education in, underserved tier 2, tier 3 cities. It will help employment, because in these areas, even simple thing like tourism can generate a lot of revenues, a lot of employment, and some countries just live on that. So if we do this properly and do, whether it's medical tourism or regular tourism or cultural tourism, and then along with that, she's also talked about innovation in semiconductors and biopharma and a little bit on AI. So I think all of those
She tried to touch all the buttons. And sometimes when you touch, there is one view that you should have been more selective, touch 5 or 6 core areas. But she's tried to touch the whole gamut of areas.
But did you notice she didn't touch the defense button, which we were talking about?
No, she didn't even talk about it at all.
No, absolutely.
She sort of stayed away from that. But the sense is the markets have reacted very negatively because of the security transaction tax, which is a minor up, but presumably the markets didn't want any of these taxes to be touched at all.
No,
Markets
this is an
wanted a
expectation
change.
story. Basically, they expected that somehow the FIIs will be wooed back, or somehow the LTCG might be changed.
Yeah, markets wanted, of course, they didn't want
always
capital
want
gains
more.
and STT,
So
and
no
instead we've got
lollipop,
an
yeah.
increase in STT, so that was a shock. But I think they've given nothing for FIIs, but they have done something for NRIs. So NRIs have been given a lot of tax incentives. Now, whether NRIs will start coming to India more and doing it, I hope they will. But then, you know, they are stuck with this 120-day limit. They can't even spend more than 120
I don't
days in
recall
India.
when last, during the budget itself, the market has slid by 1,000 points. That's a long time since that's
Market is
happened.
also much higher now.
You know, but during the budget
it's a 2%,
itself.
1.5% slide.
No, we are going back 20 odd
1,000
years.
points is not
We are going
much
back
nowadays.
20. No, during the budget, market sliding by 1,000 points, more than 1,000 points, is about 20 years ago. When, if you recall, that was the first budget of the UPA run with the left, and then A.B. Bardhan famously
But 20 years
said,
ago, the index level was also much lower, right? So
Sure, but even so, a 1,000-point drop is a substantial drop today while the budget speech is on. Clearly, the markets had expected that the STT would not be touched. And the fact that it's been touched has led to some kind of confidence lapse. Siddharth Zarabi also will join us in a moment. My colleague Maria Shakil is with us. We'll get reactions both from government and opposition in a moment. Rajiv Gowda is national spokesperson of the Congress. He heads their research cell. Mr. Gowda, you've been a critic of this government. Tell us very honestly, objectively, the best thing about the budget and what you didn't like. I want an honest answer.
I only give honest answers, Rajdeep.
No,
Honestly,
politicians don't. There must be something. First, tell me what's the good thing about the budget.
Good thing is the two enhancements that they're going to implement in different parts of the country. Mental health and is a domain that really needs addressing. So there's a first step in that direction. Now, just let me turn to focusing on my job, which is to point out what all is wrong. You know, the markets are collapsing there because not just one particular feature of the increase in the tax for the transaction. The basic point is that this was a crisis budget, right? We are facing a crisis in terms of foreign confidence and investment. And so what you need to do is to revive multiple dimensions of the Indian economy. Now, for all the talk about these three kartavyas, etc., just take what is being done for youth. Is whatever initiative that she announced here today actually going to create jobs? What has been the track record so far? What happened to agriculture? What happened to defense? How come any of these massive, crucial domains have actually been ignored in this very long, but not longest speech? So these are the sorts of questions that come up right away and say, what's, this government...
I'm just taking short reaction.
Using the budget as an announcement platform, but look at the track record and just see whether any of these have actually translated into any outcome.
Okay. Siddharth Zarabi joins us. Siddharth, your first reactions, particularly as I told Shankar, I don't recall last when during the budget speech the market takes such a sharp dip. Is it just the STT which has spooked the market?
Well, there have been instances of significant dips, including when the
more than 1,000 points, maybe retrospective tax last.
Bases were last, but I recall Pranab Mukherjee's retrospective amendment budget. But the broad point that you were making, Rajdeep, about why, it's a very simple why the securities transaction tax has been hiked. You can talk about the quantum, but its impact is coming at a time when people were looking for some relief from a stock market perspective, essentially on account of the fact that the markets have been negative for quite some time, have taken a beating on account of various external factors. So the comparison in the mind of market makers and market players is that instead of addressing that trend, they are taking this as an absolute negative that you have gone ahead and hiked on futures and options. But why is this? It's very clear on a directional basis, Rajdeep, not now, but for several years, that the that the government, fiscal authority believes that as far as this aspect of our economy is concerned, there should not be unnecessary speculation, and that is why this strings together. Now, individual packs, for example, if you were to look at the defense pack of stocks, these are taking a hit on account of, again, this build-up of anticipation that there would be an Operation Sindoor impact. And that is why you are seeing the kind of negative, the Sensex down 1.2%, the Nifty down 1.37% as we speak.
Okay, let's bring in Rajan Navani now. Mr. Navani, how are you looking at the numbers right now? I mean, of course, the stock market has given a huge thumbs down, but the larger question is that how will you describe this budget? Will you be saying, of course, we did not hear any big bang announcements like we saw in 2025. Is this the budget of consolidation then?
Yes, I think exactly that. Budgets normally shape balance sheets for a year, but I think this growth-focused budgets, actually shape a nation's future for decades. And I think this is aligned to the Vixit Bharat 2047 vision of the government, which not only deepens, I think, Bharat's internal economic strength through inclusivity, but at the same time ensuring how India can continue to march on the global stage, leveraging technology, the creative young power that India has. And I think multiple aspects of that in some shape and form have been addressed in the budget. We represent India's pioneering platform in the orange economy. And, this was the first time that has been discussed, which is actually the creative industries in India generating livelihoods, which will not only, come in the time of AI and new technologies, but, shape different aspects as we go ahead. Also, as a board member of the IICT, seeing an additional commitment to creating, 15,000 content centers in schools and in colleges is a big push to get the next generation of livelihood creation, in place, right? A big job of the government is to create jobs. I think we are seeing a big shift due to technology in how jobs will play out in the future. And I think this budget addresses largely that new emerging Bharat young component, not only positioning itself for India, but globally. And now moving really from a content creation to an IP-owned and
many see this
future.
as perhaps the government of India still not ready for the big AI leap of faith that we have seen, say, in having been taken by United States or China. India is still to catch up. Is there a sense also from this budget that, yes, as far as data centers are concerned, that is going up, but still a long march for India to catch up with what has been achieved by China and US already?
Sure. You think of AI has multiple layers, right? I think there are base infrastructure. And I think this budget has clearly said India is going to be a global cloud player, for the world, because that's where the data resides. Giving clarity on tax things until 2047 is, I think, pretty innovative, never heard before in India. So, that was my original point, right? That this budget really talks about a longer term view and also explains, stock markets today look at short term, like what we are saying, higher securities tax and react immediately. But when you think of a long term foundational building base for Indian industry, the Indian economy with the next generation of consumers, the young people who are not only going to consume, but also going to be the world's largest employees, and no country better than India to unlock that potential. So I think if done right, India can ride the journey very well.
Let's look at specifically the tax holiday till 2047 for foreign companies that provide cloud services to India, but we'll get some live reactions that are coming in. Let's listen into some of them.
Rare earth mineral और कैपेक्स बढ़ा दिया है इस ओवरऑल इसको किस तरह देखते हैं एक्सपोर्ट को लेके भी काफी फोकस है
एक्सपोर्ट पे फोकस है रेयर अर्थ पे फोकस है कैपेक्स भी 1 लाख करोड़ से बढ़ाया है तो वो भी बड़ा अच्छा है क्योंकि पहले भी अगर आप पहले से देखें तो 11 लाख करोड़ भी बहुत नंबर था अगर आप 4 साल पहले से देखें तो ऑलमोस्ट डबल कर दिया तो इस बार और 10-12% से बढ़ाया है
थैंक यू
सर हाउ डू यू लुक एट द
Siddharth, tax holiday till 2047 to foreign companies that provide cloud services to India, that work with Indian companies, importantly, is a major boost. Do you see that having a, let me also look at semiconductors, for example. Again, the government is promising and committing to a huge push in semiconductors. So specific sectors which potentially over the next 20 years could drive the economy forward are being looked at on a positive side.
Rajdeep, let's take the tax basket, and maybe this was already responded to by our guests here, so allow me repetition. If minus the STT hike that has spooked the markets, and you could also say that in terms of buybacks being brought in under the net, those are fine. If you look at it, there are a lot of specific tax reform measures which take away pain points that exist. On the customs side...
Give me an example.
Plenty of them. For example, you have a reduced TCS rate under the liberalized remittance scheme. This helps those for education fees, those who are paying, or for medical purposes. You will, you have taken specific measures as far as NRIs are concerned. A new foreign asset disclosure scheme. It's allowing people to pay up in one go and get rid of the fear of a legal overhang. Decriminalization of non-production of books of accounts or certain disclosures. These are minutiae. It may not be a headline grabbing, but I just want to take up three numbers which to me are the most significant, which talk about how this government has remained on the path over multiple years. One is the fiscal roadmap, and the numbers, the shift to debt to GDP. By next year, we will be able to have a comparative figure. The second is the capex hike. This is again very clear that physical infrastructure along with digital and new age sectors like semiconductors that you spoke about, Rajdeep, remain a priority. And I wonder if it's been discussed, but the 16th Finance Commission report has recommended 41% devolution. That 41% devolution was prevailing for the previous 5 years. That has been continued. So that part of the political economy, especially with regard to resource availability for states, being taken care of. I would say the broad macro numbers and staying on the path, no shocks, no surprises, and obviously the fiscal deficit couldn't have become 3%.
Yeah, go ahead.
Keeping up the capital expenditure.
Keeping up the capital expenditure,
over 12 trillion rupees.
And cleaning up the house with regard to certain tax and definitely for customs. These are the three broad pillars. Now, allocations for schemes. I must say that those are headline numbers. It takes time for the economy to absorb them. Several of them spill over into multi-year implementation. So for the moment, we can look beyond those numbers as well.
Given the capex numbers that you all just spoke about, let's go to Vinayak Chatterjee, Chairman, CII, National Committee on PPP in Infrastructure, founder and managing trustee, the InfraVision Foundation. Your first reaction, Mr. Chatterjee, also joined by Vivek Bhatia, MD and CEO, TKIL Industries. But first you, Mr. Chatterjee.
Thank you, thank you. I will restrict my comments to my pay grade, which is relates to the infrastructure sector. In this budget, I have found two major dominant themes in infrastructure. One is a very significant focus on urban infrastructure, and the next is a bit of a transformational agenda, which is 7 new high-speed rail corridors. These are the two major dominant themes, and there are 4 sub-themes which find an impactful presence in the budget. One is with regard to the entire focus on social infrastructure, medical tourism, university townships, archaeological sites, sports training institutes, and tourism circuits. The second is coastal and inland waterways. The third is financial restructuring, REITs for unlocking monetizing land of CPSEs, Infra Risk Guarantee Fund, restructuring of PFC and REC and municipal bonds. And the fourth is the fair amount of tax incentives being given for data centers, nuclear, biogas, and aircraft, MRO, and manufacturing
Mr.
parts.
Chatterjee,
so these are my broad takes on this budget. Yep.
Yes. One of the highlights is of setting up of infrastructure risk guarantee fund. What will it really entail?
Yes.
Infrastructure risk guarantee fund.
Well, we have to see the fine print, but it says, yes, it is the FM clarified that this was for lenders. So yes. I suspect for financial institutions lending to infrastructure projects, if there are difficulties, then this infrastructure risk guarantee fund will mitigate part of the pain. But we have to wait to see exactly what this means in terms when we see the fine print.
NPA insurance.
Sorry,
Infra NPA insurance.
It's basically a form of infra NPA insurance because the distance between the project, the realization of the funds. Now, if you see a large number, and Vinayak might know the details, a large number of projects have yet to be paid by central and state governments, which makes it difficult for the companies executing the projects to repay money to the banks. So this kind of risk guarantee will prevent them to be pushed into NCLT or to insolvency courts. And maybe I hope that they will clarify that this is not some kind of, lend to whoever you want and then sort of encash.
The fact is that this budget
it's an NPA. So
yeah, but this budget was this budget was against the backdrop of these geopolitical headwinds, which even the economic survey has spoken about. And I will come to my guest to find out what specifically does this do to allay those concerns, those fears. How much really could the budget also have done in terms of allaying what is really not in your hand, what is done across the world. But Vivek Bhatia, MD and CEO, TKIL Industries, is there a sense that the government has given a broad vision for where industry goes? We've been discussing this time and again. Private investment is lower than it was pre-2019. What has this budget done to get back that investor confidence? Specific sectors have been targeted, but is there a big picture that emerges?
Well, that's a very good question, Rajdeep. If I look at how the finance minister started her speech today, she spoke about 3 kartavyas. And the first one she said is about growth, but growth not driven by the brute force of capital, but rather focusing on productivity and competitiveness. The second one that she emphasized was, talking about aspirations and making sure that different parts of the economy, from a citizen perspective, their aspirations are addressed. And third, I think the inclusiveness that she wanted to bring about in terms of covering various parts of the economy. So I think philosophically, if I look at, these 3 objectives and what she has tried to cover, it's really a broad set of strokes with which she has tried to do different things in various pockets of the economy. Having said that, I think if we look at this from a numbers point of view, I think to have fiscal deficit going down from 4.4 to 4.3, and at the same time to have an improvement in overall infrastructure spending, I think it's a fine balancing act. But she has really put money in the right spaces and in the right areas, which is very relevant given the current macroeconomic environment, geopolitical environment that we see today. And what I really liked was, apart from the areas that Vinayak mentioned, which are extremely relevant and promising, I would say I really liked that, she carved out 20,000 crores for carbon capture, focusing on core sectors. And, when we look at the kind of FTAs that we are signing, I think making the Indian economy green, the Indian products greener, would be vital for greater market access in the coming days and years for the Indian economy. So I think that's really positioning us in the right way for those sectors. And then also in some simple ways, I think without...
Sorry, Vivek, I just want to get as many views as possible. Vinayak, very quickly, there was a sense that, as I said, this was an opportunity in the adversity of global headwinds to send out a strong signal that India means business, ease of doing business. Those have been mantras in recent times. Speed of doing business is the new mantra. Do you believe that this budget gives that kind of incentive to industry to recognize that the government is with them? Siddharth just mentioned that there are a few exemptions that are being given, for example, to NRIs to invest in India. But overall, do you see it increasing our manufacturing competitiveness and actually giving us some kind of a direction when it comes to these, to taking on the world in these times of global headwinds?
The answer lies, it's easy to give a macro answer, sweeping answer. But I think to answer your question credibly is to see the level of micro detail that the FM has gone into to actually provide a sense of relief to many, many sectors in terms, not just relief, but to provide encouragement to stand up and fight the global headwinds that are blowing. I mean, she has gone from construction equipment to chemicals to rare earths to biopharma, semiconductors, electronics, container manufacturing, natural fiber, textiles, handlooms, the special dispensation for SEZ, sports goods. So what I would say is, compared to other budgets, she has, instead of making general statements, she has specifically gone to a plethora of industries to say, we are standing by you. And I think it sends a very strong message
because
over and above the various tax concessions and incentives.
Sure, there are two views of that. Someone here suggested Pranab Mukherjee kind of budget, Tinker Raman. Others are saying Focus Raman. So Dr. Baru, your reaction was there's too much of detailing, micro detailing. Here you've got Vinayak Chatterjee saying actually that's a strength. You're giving specifics for specific industries.
No, you can give specific for specific industries. But the purpose of an annual financial statement of the government is to tell the economy what is the extra demand being injected through budgetary initiatives. We talk of a fiscal deficit of 4.3%. What is the total expenditure this year going to be? And what is the total revenue mobilization going to be? Every single budget in the past would end with a statement. This is the additional expenditure. When you give 10 different items, where you're 10,000 here, 10,000 there, 10,000 there, what does it add up to?
Okay, let me put a specific, since you said specific, tax reforms to boost manufacturing sector, exemption from income tax for 5 years to non-residents providing capital goods, equipment for tooling to any toll manufacturer in a bonded zone. Provision of safe harbor to non-residents for component warehousing in a bonded warehouse. Deferred duty payment window to trusted manufacturers. Increase the limit for duty-free imports of specific inputs used for processing seafood products for export. Duty-free imports of specific inputs extended to export of shoe uppers, that's in the leather industry. Extension of time for export of final product for exporters of leather or textile garments. Basic custom duties for manufacture of microwave ovens, basic custom duty exemptions for those in aircraft manufacturing. We've also looked at, you can also look at nuclear power specific areas, a special one-time measure to facilitate sale in domestic tariff area of duty by eligible manufacturing units of SEZs. So she will say...
What does it all add up to?
It all adds up to trying to use this to ensure ease of doing business for specific sectors.
But does it make the economy more open?
No. Manufacturing sector has been a matter of concern. These are efforts being made, when one would say.
So has been dying, and now you're again coming up with some regulation to incentivize industry through kind of SEZ.
I mean, she's specifically giving you tax reforms for specific sectors.
The big story here is the government of India will spend 1 lakh crore more.
Higher capital expenditure.
Higher capital thing. The total expenditure is...
Total expenditure 25% of the budget is, I think, on capex now.
Yeah, and the total expenditure is roughly gone up by that much. Yeah. So you have last year's economic conditions with a higher, marginally, incrementally higher expenditure. What the budget sort of the lost in detail story is that there are specific areas which sort of they're creating the roads, like the high-speed rail corridor. But there's no allocation, you don't know where it's going.
That's the point.
So whether it will be funded by public or PPP or the Japanese, we don't know.
But we know from experience, Dr. Baru.
So at least I think there's an intent put out that 7 more high-speed rail is coming out.
Let's also look at it from a different perspective. If you take the last 11-year period, capital expenditure budget has gone up 6 times. It was 2 lakh crore then, it is now 12.2 lakh crore. And if you look at defense modernization, because Shankar, we have the numbers now, the defense modernization allocation this year is 2.2 lakh crore. So as the details filter in, it seems that the intent that has been followed for several years of a capex push along with other measures continues very clearly with the numbers.
The best part of the budget.
Demand is not picking up. I mean, we began this discussion by saying that the big challenge is stagnant private corporate investment and stagnant demand.
Productivity gains.
Okay, so let's listen into some reactions which have come in. These are political reactions coming in from Parliament.
हम जो इंतजार कर रहे थे मेरे केरला में हम कुछ नहीं सुन पाए एक टर्टल ट्रेल के बारे में सुना उसके अलावा और रेयर अर्थ्स मैं भी कुछ समय से कह रहा था लेकिन उसके अलावा केरला के लिए कुछ नहीं सुनाई दिया। एक ऑल इंडिया इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मेडिकल साइंस में 15 साल से इंतजार कर रहे हैं, कोई अनाउंसमेंट नहीं था। ऑल इंडिया इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ आयुर्वेदा की अनाउंसमेंट किया, लेकिन नहीं बताया कि कहाँ, क्यों नहीं केरला में, बताना चाहिए था। कोई जामनगर के बारे में कुछ बोला, लेकिन केरला के बारे में।
हम लोग का पहला रिएक्शन सीआई का काफ़ी पॉजिटिव है बजट के बारे में, और बजट जो हम लोग की जो इंडस्ट्री की मांग थी वो काफ़ी हद तक पूरी करता है, और जो खासकर रिफॉर्म्स में कई सेक्टर्स को फोकस करना, एमएसएमईज को फोकस करना, सर्विसेज में भी नया फोकस उन्होंने दिया है, और हर एक सोसाइटी के हर एक वर्ग को अलग अलग भागों में कर उनके लिए क्या कर रहे हैं वो भी काफ़ी अच्छा था। और टैक्स में कई जो चीज़ें थी जो पहले से जो कई चीज़ें जो रेस करी जा रही थी सिंप्लीफिकेशन के लिए, वो भी उन्होंने काफ़ी हद तक सॉल्व किया।
Okay, as you can see, these are early reactions, and often the devil or the benefits in a budget lie in the details. And until those details start coming out, it would be premature to make the kind of statements like I just heard from Shashi Tharoor कि हमको कुछ turtle के लिए दिया गया है. If you look at it, there are also other areas which could benefit Kerala when it comes, for example, cashew and specific. You see, it almost seems as if a finance minister is in a zero-sum game. If she goes into specifics, people say she's tinkering. If she gives the broad sweep, people say that she's generalizing. The direction clearly has been given of continuity. Am I correct to use that word, Siddharth? That she has effectively gone on the path of continuity where she's been doing the budgets over. Yes, Punita.
So I would say that your question earlier, then have we addressed what is happening geopolitically?
Yes.
I don't think the budget addresses that directly.
What could she have done?
Well, first of all, no increase in big defense spending. I mean, given the situation that we face with our neighbors, that's a very geopolitically stressed situation. So we've not addressed that. But what we have addressed through multiple different ways is strengthening the domestic supply chains by giving some relief to lots of little MSMEs, and as I said, you know, tier 2, tier 3 cities development, etc. So it's back to like being more insular and focusing more on the domestic economy rather than focusing on the global economy. There's very little here that will help us
Rajdeep, in
globally.
terms of the politics of budget, we often focus on that. Last year, there were some announcements that were made keeping in mind particularly the alliance partners for Andhra Pradesh and also for Bihar. Bihar was poll-bound. Now, we haven't seen any such big announcement with regards to Tamil Nadu or Bengal. These are the two states where the BJP is very keen on expanding its footprint. So, the politics of the budget is something that we'll have to wait and see.
No,
there were a few.
Not specifics.
For Kerala, if
yes.
you could see, there was an attempt being made to reach out to specific
No, it
industry.
was there. The colors were all there. Kerala had stuff. Tamil Nadu had stuff.
Eastern region. She spoke of Eastern region.
No, Andhra Pradesh had it because of the
Hyderabad, lots of
all the marine.
yes.
The whole marine story is the Andhra story, and there is stuff for Odisha.
Let me
these are
let me get in Pawan Verma for a quick comment. Pawan Verma is a former member of parliament. He just written a piece saying that this is a chance for the FM to be brave. Mr. Verma, was the FM brave according to you?
In my view, you have to ask yourself the question, what do you expect from a budget statement? Frankly, I'm a little disappointed because we were expecting a vision statement, and I'll tell you very simply why. The government has been in two absolute majorities and one stable majority for a third term. The fiscal deficit is under control, inflation is manageable, the growth rates are above 6 to 7%. Given that, this was the time I felt that she should have made a major reform budget. Instead of that, in my view, what you got was overwhelming minutiae. Now you can decluster them and see what is going to help where. But there was no overarching statement for change. And I'll tell you in which sectors. Very clearly. Investment. The government keeps telling the economic tigers of India, why do you not invest more? Now, what have you done specifically in terms of ease of doing business, in terms of radical reform? Because you can tinker with the system, or you can give a blueprint by which investors feel confident of putting their cash-rich stocks back into the economy. There is also the other factor. Rajdeep, I'll take another 1 minute only. The fact is that today, those who invest face the fear that failure will be conflated with fraud. And even success may be penalized if you don't sufficiently toe the government line. But that's a political issue. They need more investor confidence. What have you done? For instance, I've just named 4 sectors. These are the elephants in the room, the ghosts in the room. You've got to tackle them.
Well, she's tried to in some way give industry some relief or tried to assuage their concerns over tax inspector Raj. She has spoken about that. The question at the end of the day is, again, what does it actually translate into a big picture? I think that's what it's coming down to. Has she been, I repeat, focused Raman or tinker Raman? There are those who are saying she's tinkered around too much. There are others who will say that she's at least given 8 or 10 industries a clear focus as to the path ahead. That, in a sense, Mr. Verma, as a quick final comment, seems to be where the debate lies. You wanted to give a vision statement on investor confidence. There are others who are saying that there are specific industries that needed to know that they are part of India's growth story, and she's tried to address that. Seafood is a good example of those who've suffered as a result of US tariffs in recent times. She's tried to address their concerns.
Okay, I'll just name 4 sectors where I was expecting, I have great respect for Nirmala ji, that she would come out with decisive economic steps akin to the 1991 budget, because we are placed at the same situation. One was ease of doing business. I felt she could have done much more. The second was, what do you do with the dole economy? Because you've got to move people either to employment or enterprise. You can't continue with the dole economy. Third is agriculture. It's plateaued. We need a second green revolution. Fourthly is unemployment. There had to be a massive push on skill development in an age of AI and automation where unemployment opportunities are drying up. And lastly, poverty. Poverty, you've got to lift all the boats of the economy. On per capita income, we are somewhere around 140 in the world, in spite of being the 3rd largest economy. So where is that statement which kickstarts the economy in a manner which takes it to another level, rather than tinkering with the system and doing more of the same?
Siddharth, is this sort of binary that is being drawn, that there are supporters who are saying, look, she's focused on specific sectors, focused Raman, versus those that she's tinkered around too much, very much much like a Pranab Mukherjee kind of budget, is what one of our panelists suggested.
Could this have been a dream budget? I would say the dream lies in the details. And if you look at the details, the argument can well be that instead of rhetoric, there are specific steps. Now, obviously, we might disagree with the nature of these steps or the fact that they are very minute in detail and it is not possible to comprehend. For example, just one quick instance, the defense modernization part of the budget has increased 22%. I keep saying that the details, and Rajdeep, you refer to that. Look at it in terms of reforms. Between the Prime Minister's announcement that had happened with regard to reforms, and this is what we have also been calling our coverage reforms express, from Independence Day to now, 350 specific reforms have been announced so far. What this also tells me, today's budget also tells me, is that the process of announcing major changes will not be confined to this budget.
It will be outside the budget.
And it has happened. The 2019 corporate tax rate cut, which was referenced by the Finance Minister, happened on 17th of September.
The flip side is all the more she could have then used this occasion, if the reforms were taking place outside the budget, use this budget to give a clear direction as to this reform express.
There is a seven path, kartavya, a path that has been expressed. That is the way the government wants to express it.
Dr. Baru, this is a strong point that is being made here, that many of the reforms have taken place pre-budget. What more do you expect the budget itself to do now?
No, look, I agree. That I don't disagree with what Siddharth has said. The point is this. There are 3 dimensions to the annual financial statement of the Finance Minister. One is fiscal, second is policy, and third is this, what you call tinkering, sectoral, Now, on fiscal, of course, we know what the fiscal deficit is, we know what the debt GDP ratio is going to be. So there is some stabilization there, and we are happy with it. We know that Finance Commission report has been accepted. So that's done. On the tinkering part, yes, in any budget speech, finance ministers have to be seen to be appealing to different constituencies. I have no problem with that. But the third dimension to the speech is to tell me this year, will all these initiatives take the economy from 6.5% rate of growth to 8% rate of growth over the next year? Because if you want to be Vixit Bharat by 2047, you need over the next 20 years an average rate of growth of 8% compared to the average rate of growth of 6.5% over the previous 20 years.
Okay.
Now, how will these initiatives, which are essentially sectoral, we've been told each sector something has been done, but overall, will these budgetary initiatives really push growth forward by 1.5 percentage points over the next year or two? That is a kind of big picture thing a finance minister is expected to say in an annual statement to the parliament.
Dr. Barwal, quickly.
If you are traveling overseas, the TCS has been reduced. Earlier it was 5 and 20%. It is down to 2%. Very good rationalization of a measure that had been taken earlier. So yes, the devil lies in these details.
Himanshu Bed, co-chair of FICCI Medical Devices Committee, is joining us. Himanshu, how are you looking at the overall allocation or the message that is coming in for the health sector? Himanshu, if you heard me. Okay.
Okay, we'll try and go to Himanshu in a moment. Amitabh Dubey, who's with the economic cell of the Congress party, is also joining us. Amitabh Dubey, the first reaction, predictably, of the opposition is to say that the budget is non-transparent. To be fair to Nirmala Sitharaman, that in fact, one of the criticisms that she's resorted to minutiae. So when you say non-transparent, what is the opposition trying to really say? When she's gone into great detail.
Look, Rajiv, I want to make the general point is that about the credibility of this budget, the numbers underlying the budget. We are told that in the economic survey that growth is 7.4%, which implies that the inflation rate is 0.6%. Now, in whose lived experience is the inflation rate 0.6%? And this is precisely why the IMF gave the national accounts a C grade, because the wrong kind of deflator is being used. So rather than the growth rate being so high, if we come up with a realistic assumption of the inflation rate, then growth is much lower. And that obviously throws a lot of these projections into question. And the budget, I want to remind you, is about growth, it's about investment, it's about deficits. These are the important parts of the budget rather than announcement of this or that scheme. And this is why I also want to remind everyone that on the 27th of February, we're going to have a new set of national accounts. So all of these numbers are going to be rendered quite meaningless. So this is one point, is that the entire premise of growth investment of this budget are very questionable. The second point I'd like to make is that we've had a series of announcements. Now, this government is a champion at making announcements, and then no one actually follows up to see what the execution is. So let me remind you that we've had huge announcements on this and that sector over the past 10, 12 years, Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And the net result is that corporate investment for the last decade has remained at 12%. It hasn't budged an inch. The proportion of the economy in manufacturing is under 13% compared with 16% of the UPA. So you can have all these announcements, but what is missing is execution, and the outcomes are all entirely on the negative side.
Well, some of those, the execution is also with the states. I think one of the challenges for a finance minister is to set you're part of a team and you've got various captains in different states. But Punita, you wanted to make a quick point. Yes.
No, you were saying that is it a focus budget or a tinker
budget?
That's
the binary I'm offering.
And I'm now putting on my fund manager, investment manager hat. We can run concentrated portfolios or diversified portfolios, and both can lead to good outcomes. This is a diversified budget with some focused areas. So it's like, 70% of your portfolio is going to be on certain areas and 30% goes to the rest. But for an investor, does it mean that there are really standing out areas that you would then change your portfolio and invest in certain sectors? A little bit, but not huge.
Okay, since the initial reaction was, where is the word defense mentioned? Now, the details are here, and Siddharth, you can climb in on this. There's a big defense spend boost in budget 2026, says the government. Mammoth hike is what they claim in the defense budget. 7.8 lakh crores for 2026, and defense forces to get 1 lakh crores this year. Defence Ministry has allotted a budget of 7.8 lakh crores for 2026-27. Defence forces to get 2.19 lakh crores for modernization. Now,
so Rajdeep, that number, because a large part of the defence budget goes on the revenue account, which is salaries and pensions, and that breakup is available. That is why the focus has to be on modernization. And by my reckoning at this stage, and subject to any correction, this is almost a quarter hike, nearly 22% hike in modernization. So clearly, as the fine print comes out, there is a substantial allocation.
Let's look at expenditure of major items as per the budget.
Transport is
number one, 5.98 lakh crores. Defence number 2 at 5.94 lakh crores. Rural development 2.73. Home affairs 2.55. Agriculture 1.62. Education 1.39. Energy 1.09. Health 1.04 lakh crores. Urban development 85,000 crores. IT and telecom 74,000. Commerce and industry 70,000. Social welfare 62,000. One of the criticisms.
Quick point. Dr. Baru knows it. He's sort of dwelt on this for a large part of his life. Most of our expenditure is already baked in. No government, even if they had all seats in parliament, can suddenly switch gear and say, I will completely stop doing things. You could call it a gravy train, but the Sarkar, the state in India, has massive gravy trains. Transport, defense, others, these are all essential for the realm. But the fact is that the flexibility available to a finance minister to suddenly move around stuff by even 5 percentage points is close to impossible.
But I hear those who said that a couple of years from now it'll get even more, it'll become even more difficult when the next pay commission's numbers kick in. So therefore, this was an opportunity in a way. I'm asking you, this was an opportunity in a way for greater rationalization to identify the focused areas more clearly. Has the government done that?
Well,
or have they, as Punita said, tried to diversify too much?
There is a lot that a budget of the size of India has to address. There are allocations, and then there are choices that you are making in terms of a policy choice. Should I push A or should I push B? If I have put 40,000 crore in electronic component manufacturing, what will the result be? The result is that we are seeing more and more phones. Now you may say, is it 100% manufactured or 70% assembled in India? Stuff is happening. These are policy choices they have made. We can argue, but at least the voter consistently rewards these policy choices.
Let's step away from the, when we discuss economic policy, I'd much rather that we don't sort of align it to who's winning the election and all. That's a whole separate ball game.
No, are you saying, Shankar, that these things don't have an impact on voter choices?
As we saw in Bihar, in the end, it was a 10,000 rupee scheme that you had to give to more than 1.5 crore women, which made the difference. I think there should be a direction, for example, whether in the budget or any. What is our stand on the dole economy? If you want to call it the dole, but go ahead.
Let me flip that. If we are growing at 8.2%,
I'm like a for and against.
Why are we feeding 81 crore people?
We are not growing at 8.2%.
No, 8.2. First half was 8.2 or whatever. No, total 7.4%. Whatever. We are fastest growing. We have the largest rural employment scheme, largest health scheme, largest food security program, largest Narega. So there is...
And the largest population.
No. Scale is... Both cannot be at the same time. We take it as an advantage. Scale. So we are saying that this is why this is happening, and so why I always put a stop to this vote thing is that none of the past few elections would have resulted in the results that came out if the doles had been removed. Okay, all this Ladli Bahan, Ladki Bahan, whatever, with just on cash transfer to women is 3 lakh crores. So I would, to use Punita's analogy, I would say this is a capital protection budget. Is because the fiscal deficit and all that is covered. What is they have done? They had 4 lakh crores is the total rise in expenditure, out of which 1 lakh crore has gone to infrastructure, 2 lakh crores has gone to defense, and they have worked it around. What is the story that they are trying to tell is that we have created enablers in the economy. Now that might get lost in the minutiae and all. But we should not give this, Rajdeep, you said that much of the reforms is the states. they are not half tickets on the system. Now they are full tickets. And 15 of the states, the
So when
BJP
we
is
look at
ruling.
these defense numbers in particular, because we are flashing those details on our television screens, the total Ministry of Defense allocation has gone up. This is 9.53% increase over 2024-25 and about 13.45% of the total union budget, which is the highest among all the ministries. But this is not just about modernization. Of course, as you said, it's pensions as well, but domestic procurement push is also there.
No, this is good idea because we have done a lot of the import substitution.
That's right.
But what we are all trying to wrestle with is when we started this morning, we said, okay, how do we address the cloud of uncertainty that the geopolitics has done? How do we address the rupee-dollar situation? And how do we address the investments? Now, you would have expected that the budget speech at some point would have a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 1 line, 1 slogan to say this is what we are doing and then align the pieces. This is a budget that has landed between hope and hype.
See, two numbers.
That's an interesting one.
Two numbers
between hope and hype.
Yes. First number, the total increase in expenditure, total expenditure of the government of India is 7%.
Yes.
This year or last year, nominal. 7%.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's not get carried away by this. Second, as far as capital expenditure is concerned, it remains at 3.1% of GDP, revised estimates last year and budget estimates this year. There's no change. So, the big numbers, there is a certain status quo as far as the big numbers are concerned. On defense, your increased spending, fine. As I told you, after every conflict, there is increased spending. But the issue today that defense companies are waiting to hear from the government is what is your equipment purchase plan, procurement strategy. What will you buy over the next 5 years? Because I will not produce it if you will not give me a guarantee of buying, because you are the only customer. And a budget speech like this that increases defense expenditure by 13%, which is what you have calculated, I have not done the calculation, should at least have said that the government of India is going to have a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan for defense procurement, so that companies know that over the next 3 years, this is what they're going to be buying, and then they make the production plans, which is not in place. That has to be put in place.
One more point. But that I think is anyway announced separately. It doesn't have to be part of a budget speech as to what the government is going to buy.
Am I right? One of our takeaways is it vaccinates India against Trump tariffs. Does it really do that?
Yes, I think it does. It does.
How?
Because we are focusing on, look, we can't do anything about the tariffs right now. The negotiations are still we've hit a stalemate there. But right now we can do is focus on what our domestic economy can be stimulated. And that's what she's done by allocating a lot of resources to lots of different initiatives domestically, and also bringing data centers to India and, allowing foreign companies to then work with domestic companies. So that's a good initiative. The thing that we aren't discussing is that, while the 7.2% GDP number, real GDP number is good, our nominal GDP and the company's earnings, which foreign investors have been seeing for years, they feel India's nominal GDP is not good and the earnings growth isn't good. Now, this budget isn't going to address that. It's not going to address, it's not a growth-oriented budget. It's a long-term, little by little, build the foundations across many, many different areas. So it won't really bring FIIs back in a big rush. And then we've been one of the worst performing markets this year to date. And now we've got this STT. So it isn't going to really, even though it's marginal, it's not what investors were expecting.
No, the dollar returns on this economy is poor. Because the rupee has tanked last year, and this doesn't look like it's recovering. So if you take the prism of the dollar returns, it will be different.
Rajdeep, on the point of defense acquisition, now we know that there is a Defense Acquisition Council. What can a budget do, frankly? It is also a question of our decades-long manufacturing incapacity in defense that is only now being addressed. There is an incapacity in faster approvals because of the overhang of past decisions. Also, although that has changed, this government has devolved powers with regard to the level of acquisitions that can be done. The third bit is there is an essential dichotomy between what our armed forces want. They are dealing with very cunning, very devious adversaries on both fronts, and they want top-of-line equipment. Our own manufacturing capacity sometimes, and this is the most recent comment about the delays in delivery of our indigenous fighter jets. I mean, I frankly don't see that turning around in 1 year. I always recall what the late Manohar Parrikar tried to do by bringing in a platform-based strategy and 6 or 7 large manufacturing champions who would not do individual arms. And we reported on that story. They would do platforms. That never went through, Rajdeep.
Okay, Chairman of the 15th Finance Commission, that is Dr. N.K. Singh, is joining us live. Mr. Singh, thank you for speaking to us. Your first big takeaway of this budget.
Okay, N.K. Singh will join us shortly. Remember, the 16th Finance Commission report headed by Arvind Panagriya comes out later this month, and that will be looked at very closely, particularly in the context of states.
Already done today.
Already done today is what are the details out?
Yes. In fact,
can you tell us more?
So see, the 16th Finance Commission report, Rajdeep, continues with 41% allocation, devolution rather,
for states.
For states as the previous 5 years. So what does that broadly mean? Number one, it does not cut back any state at the gross level. Number two, if you look at the choice that is being made, at 41%, the Finance Commission and the government saying that we have accepted it. In fact, that was the one-line item that the Finance Minister spoke about before she began her speech. Yes, it clearly means that as far as the resource availability to states is concerned, that continues down a path that has been followed for years. So, Rajdeep, very quickly, I think we should look at this budget as a defense at the ramparts. They are not going out to capture new territory, but they are making sure that whatever is existing, not even a square inch is ceded.
Okay, N.K. Singh, as Maria just said, joins us. Someone who's tracked several budgets, was part of Manmohan Singh's team as one time and has also been part of Prime Minister Modi's economic think tank. Appreciate you joining us there.
Also part of Chidambaram's dream budget.
That's right. Yes. So he's crisscrossed. That's why I said from Manmohan Singh to Narendra Modi via Chidambaram is the way we'll put it. But Mr. N.K. Singh, your first reactions to this budget. There are those who believe that Nirmala Sitharaman has gone too much into micro-detailing and tinkering. There are others who are saying it's very focused and provides us some kind of a insulation in a Trump-driven world.
So I would say I have 3 comments, Rajdeep, and thank you for allowing me to share these views in this prestigious channel being anchored by you, which I have had the privilege of being part of much earlier for many, many years. I have 3 broad comments to make. First, I would say that the Finance Minister has been credible, she has been sagacious, and she has been responsible. Why? First and foremost, we all know that given the fact of great global uncertainties, given the fact that, as the Economic Survey has pointed out, there are currency issues facing every central banker, if she had not adhered to the path of fiscal consolidation, the overall macroeconomic framework would have seen rather serious adverse consequences. Notwithstanding expenditure pressures, I was listening to the debate on defense and in other areas, she has continued with a very high focus on infrastructure investment of now reaching over 11 lakh crores. She has continued with this in tandem with the fiscal consolidation roadmap. This year, not only will she get to 4.4, but next year the audacious one of 4.3. Debt has gone down this year, well on track to achieve the 50% debt to GDP by the terminal date of 2031. So in that sense, the overall is very, very responsible and very credible. My third important point is that, yes, there has been, and I would say very legitimately so, the sectoral kinds of issues which must occupy the center space, because she's riding on the back of what is being called the Reform Express, which India has seen in 2025. That's why we have been able to not only withstand the kinds of global exogenous uncertainties and pressures, including from the United States, but in fact we are in a position, Rajdeep, I don't know if you have noticed, that the economic survey has bumped up India's long-term trajectory of 6.5% in real terms to 7%. Of course, I don't want at this stage to go into the granularity of nominal
Mr. Singh,
versus
Maria has a question. Go ahead, Maria.
Mr. Singh,
real,
this is with regards
but
to
go ahead.
8,000 crore, which came in Times of India today, about 8,000 crore allocated for new urban cities, and that has not been utilized. So when we look at the budget allocation, that will also be the concern.
So I think that, Maria, you have pointed out the fact that, yes, as chairman of the 15th Finance Commission, we had given a recommendation which was accepted by government to allocate 8,000 crores for incubation of new cities, which has not been utilized with only 2 months remaining. But she has instead unveiled far deeper reforms on urban rejuvenation and really creating urban clusters which are very credible. And I think that whereas this could have been done in addition to that 8,000 crore, be that as it may, as we look forward, the renewed emphasis on rejuvenating and creating new urban clusters, not only urban clusters as a growth multiplier, but urban clusters in terms of its large contribution to GDP and, dare say, to employment.
You know, the challenge with urban clusters, urban governance, and we mentioned that this was one of the major challenges India faces going ahead. The question is whether those smart city, we've seen the smart city project among those projects which has had mixed results.
The smart city project was a smart idea and a dumb policy. For 10 years, they just did incremental stuff. Last year budget, they had 1 lakh crore for urban challenges. We don't know what's the fate of that idea because it's not been devolved. There is also 1 lakh crore for research and development, which finally they are now got it into a portal and the disbursal might happen. The question about urban governance is that you can't do it top down. It has to be done from the state. There has to be devolution. The 74th Amendment has been buried deep into the ground.
Federalism should not end in state capitals.
Okay, let me bring in Himanshu Baid, co-chair FICCI Medical Services Devices Committee, Managing Director Poly Medicure, because one of the areas this budget did focus is medical tourism, pharma. The fact is that there has been a genuine attempt, particularly with medical tourism, to give it boosts with various benefits being provided. Your first reactions to that? Do you believe specific sectors will benefit more than necessarily the entire economy? These will be specific wagons that will move ahead.
Thank you, Rajdeep. I think, first time we have seen some detailing on the healthcare sector, especially for future economic growth. And especially this Biopharma Shakti mission for 10,000 crore allocation, expansion of NIPERS, stronger CDSCO, especially to accelerate innovation, approvals, global competitiveness. I think all these were called out. And relief on cancer drugs, then medical value tourism hubs. First time government has given focus on MVT, which is a very big sign because I think India has a great capacity to handle foreign patients. And the way our healthcare is today growing rapidly, I think we are pretty much up there in terms of delivery. So I think I'm for assistive devices, all that is pretty much called out, which was pretty much not there in any previous budgets. So I think very specifically called out, positioning healthcare as a social and economic multiplier.
Okay.
In terms of reform, since you're talking about that particular sector, why do you say that there has been no efforts in the past for this sector?
I think it was, when we looked at CDSCO, and I'll talk from medical devices perspective, pharma and medical devices were governed by just one single organization. I think a stronger CDSCO means there's a deeper approach for approvals, innovation, global competitiveness, which was never there earlier. So I think there's a special focus on these areas.
Himanshu, I'm looking at NIMHANS, setting up of a NIMHANS 2 and upgrading National Mental Health Institute, establishing emergency and trauma care centers in district hospitals. That's how it is looking like in terms of larger benefits for this, healthcare sector. That doesn't seem to be there in the pointers that I've just read.
See, basically, if you see the last budget, there was a focus on oncology, onco care centers, 200 centers were announced and 700 more to be, over next 2-3 years. So I think it's a beginning of, where we see special focus in these areas. It will take few years for these things to come out and develop, but I think the focus is, pretty much there for advancement of technologies.
Okay, so there is a reaction now coming in from the Trinamool Congress. Abhishek Banerjee is speaking. Let's listen in.
दिखाए कि पिछले 4 साल में ग्रामीण सड़क में जहाँ पे 60% पैसा केंद्र सरकार का देना बनता है, वहाँ पे 10 पैसा दिया है. मैं राजनीति छोड़ दूंगा. स्टेट मदरली ट्रीटमेंट और एटीट्यूड. बंगाल में आप हार रहे हो, इसलिए बंगाल के लोगों को सबक सिखाना है. लोकतंत्र में सबक जनता सिखाता है, राजनेता या राजनीतिक कोई पर्सनालिटी नहीं सिखाता है. जनता के बल और जनबल के आगे किसी का नहीं टिकता है. कोई अगर सोचता है मेरे पास ताकत है, मैं जनता को सबक सिखाऊंगा, जनता फिर से सबक सिखाएगा और आने वाले चुनाव में जवाब करारा मिलेगा.
आने वाले चुनाव में जवाब करारा मिलेगा और कहीं ना कहीं जिस तरीके से स्टेप मदरली ट्रीटमेंट केंद्र सरकार वेस्ट बंगाल के साथ कर रही है, उसका जवाब आने वाले चुनाव में जरूर मिलेगा.
So politics as expected has started. Rajiv Mantri, expected lines, the reactions that are coming in. We expected opposition to talk about how there is nothing
those
much.
Those states which have not really been highlighted will
As
always
much.
speak out that they didn't get this and they didn't get that. This always happens, so nothing surprising.
Well, they can always grow coconut.
No, but that's also a very old world. This is like the old railways budgets that used to be there. Unless a train ran from a particular MP's constituency, it wasn't seen as a budget that was fulfilling the needs of a particular state. But
which is very parochial and small.
That's right. This is a union budget at the end of the day. And I think, as we are saying, there are certain focus areas that should be highlighted: cancer, drugs, medical tourism, education. Logistics,
the tax break on data centers tells us how much importance the government is placing on data localization.
Sure. So, I mean, I think the government, as I said, you can look at this budget two ways, and this is the way it's going to be looked at. Those who believe that the government has given that much needed focus to key areas. There will be others who will say that maybe the government should have provided, as Dr. Baru keeps insisting, a clear intent of the direction in which they are taking the economy in terms of encouraging people to invest across the board and tell us, therefore, where the growth trajectory goes. So those are two clear views that are emerging. I don't know whether N.K. Singh is still with us because, Mr. Singh, much of this also, the heavy lifting will have to be now done by the states. The Finance Commission details have come out and we've seen about 19 states have revenue deficits at the moment, some of them whopping given the scale of the dole economy. Should that be a concern? We don't focus on state budgets enough, but states is where governments are simply don't even have money at times to pay salaries on time.
I totally agree with you, Rajdeep. In fact, you have perhaps taken the words from my mouth, that while we are excessively preoccupied with the fiscal and the debt trajectory of the central government, and we focus on it, we have scarcely any focus or a means to focus on state finances. Day before yesterday, you are absolutely right, Rajdeep. The report of the Reserve Bank on state finances came out, and that presents a grim picture where fiscal deficits have slipped, raises broader issues in what kind of a freebie economy and so on the states can do, but what can the central government do? Rajdeep, I want to ask you, this is a question I have posed myself several times, that under the 7th schedule of the Constitution, and since we will not in a position to alter the 7th schedule of the Constitution, as long as the state borrowing is upon the security of the consolidated fund of the state, and since the Indian Constitution doesn't provide any recourse for state-level bankruptcy, while keeping the finances of what the world looks at, you are right, is general government. It doesn't look at, an investor doesn't look at central or state government. In fact, Rajdeep, the ironic circumstance is today,
Mr. Singh, just hold on to your thoughts. Trinamool Congress Supremo and West Bengal Chief Minister is speaking.
Anti-ST, anti-OBC. Education funds, education subsidy declined, social security subsidy declined, fertilizer subsidy declines. It is totally garbage of lies and incompetence, Himalayan incompetence. Totally economy is derailed. Now, you will see within this time, the market falls sharply. Sensex down above over 1,100 points. Nifty 50 has been below 25,000. So you can realize there is a proverb in Bengali, chorer maye boro gola, English bole chor ki mai jor se bole, mother of thieves are sounds less, sound, mother of thieves are sound less. Now, for Bengal, what they have given? Nothing. Talking big. Kichu daini.
You know, one of the challenges, of course, has been this notion of cooperative federalism. Mr. Modi himself has been a chief minister, and when he came to power, the Planning Commission was removed, Niti Aayog was brought in, and their belief was that this would, in a way, so was the hope, actually bring center and state closer together. As we see, even though the BJP dominates several, of course, of the states, the opposition chief ministers versus the Modi government has become a source of immense friction. And you can't, in the times in which we live, it's one thing dealing with Donald Trump outside. But when you're dealing with sort of internal tussles all the time, it makes life difficult. Opposition ruled states insist that they are being discriminated against time and again.
Rajdeep, let's take that question to Mr. Singh.
Yes.
Mr. Singh, if you can hear us, sir, at 41%, which is the same as
the share to the states,
as you had recommended, are you okay with that? Was there scope to raise it further? Is this enough?
Let me put it this way to you, Rajdeep. Please go back in time and see the trajectory of this devolution. During the time of up to the time of Dr. Vijay Lakshman Kelkar, who headed the 13th Finance Commission, the devolution to the states was in the region of about 31%. This was itself an incremental increase over what Chakravarti Rangarajan had given in the 13th Finance Commission. Kelkar kept it in the region of about 30-31. Then the 14th Finance Commission under Dr. Vedugopal Reddy, for the first time, gave 42%. It was a very, very sharp escalation of 42%. And the explanation given by Dr. Reddy at that time was he expected that all these centrally sponsored schemes and central sector schemes would be very, very greatly rationalized. When it came to my commission, I made 42 into 41 because by then the state of Jammu and Kashmir had really become a union territory, and therefore it was more sensible to increase the grant component of the Home Ministry from which the state of J&K would have
I'm going to stop you again, sir. We just want to listen to the Minister Ashwini Vaishnav giving a government reaction. Sorry.
मैन्युफैक्चरिंग पे बहुत बड़ा फोकस दिया गया है. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो, सेमीकंडक्टर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हो, और आईटी सर्विसेज के लिए बहुत एक सिग्निफिकेंट सिंप्लीफिकेशन किया गया है. सेफ हार्बर और फास्ट ट्रैक एपीए के प्रोविजंस लाके आने वाले समय में डेटा सेंटर्स बहुत बड़ी एक ताकत बनेंगे देश की, जिससे कि दुनिया भर को नई सर्विसेज और भारत के लिए नए एम्प्लॉयमेंट और एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के नए रास्ते खुलेंगे. तो डेटा सेंटर्स पे जो टैक्स हॉलिडे दिया, इसके लिए मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को और माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी को धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा. साथ ही साथ ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी जो हमारी क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी है, इसमें 20 लाख एम्प्लॉयमेंट नए बनाने के लिए क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी में आईआईसीटी मुंबई के साथ मिलकर 15,000 स्कूल और 500 कॉलेजेस में क्रिएटर्स लैब बनाने के लिए बजट में प्रोविजन किया गया है. और साथ ही साथ रेलवे के लिए 7 नए हाई स्पीड कॉरिडोर्स, चेन्नई से बेंगलुरु, चेन्नई से हैदराबाद, बेंगलुरु से हैदराबाद, मुंबई से पुणे, पुणे से हैदराबाद, दिल्ली से वाराणसी और वाराणसी से सिलीगुड़ी। एक तरीके से साउथ इंडिया में सदर्न ट्रायंगल बनेगा चेन्नई, बेंगलुरु, हैदराबाद का हाई स्पीड रेलवे का, बुलेट ट्रेन का। वैसे ही दिल्ली, वाराणसी, सिलीगुड़ी का एक नया हाई स्पीड कॉरिडोर बनेगा और साउथ वेस्ट को साउथ से जोड़ने वाला मुंबई से पुणे, पुणे से हैदराबाद का एक बहुत बड़ा मेजर कॉरिडोर बनेगा। साथ ही साथ आज बजट में एक नए डेडिकेटेड फ्रेट कॉरिडोर जो कि बंगाल में दांकुनी, वहाँ से गुजरात में सूरत, इसको जोड़ने वाला, ईस्ट को वेस्ट के साथ जोड़ने वाला नया DFC भी सैंक्शन हुआ है। मैं इस बजट के लिए जो कि युवा शक्ति से प्रेरित है, जो कि विकसित भारत की एक मजबूत नींव बनाता है, जो कि समाज के हर वर्ग के लिए और देश के हर क्षेत्र के लिए विकास का एक नया माध्यम बना है, इसके लिए मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी का अभिनंदन करता हूँ।
बजट में कितना लोकेशन किया गया?
Statement from Ashwini Vaishnav there, the Information and Broadcasting and IT and Railways Minister of the country. Just to take that point forward that we were discussing about state finances, about the need for states also to pull their weight. One of the concerns has been this huge South-North divide, or the South-North, South-West versus the North and East divide. And that is something that perhaps every government should be conscious of, because it can become a potential friction point in the future. There's not much that you can do in a budget beyond the point. But is there a need, therefore, perhaps for the Prime Minister to take the lead, get all these chief ministers together and find a way forward? Rather than you said a top-down approach doesn't work, for example, for urban governance.
No, but chief ministers who complain about these kind of inequalities or the problem with the distribution should also look at their own states. In Bihar,
No, that's fair enough.
Shevhar has a per capita income of 19,000. Patna has 1 lakh, and then national, and both of them are below the national average. The question really is about all these states. What have they done to promote their investment? It's not enough to have these summits and all. Why not?
Can I give you numbers? West Bengal only spent 24.4% of its budget, its own state budget's capex during the year. Chhattisgarh 27%, Tripura 22%, Meghalaya 30%. Do you know which was the best state? 117% of budget? Telangana.
See, let me make two
smaller
points,
state also. Perhaps helps. Yes, go ahead.
One is that the National Development Council, as an institution, was wound up in 2014, along with the Planning Commission. There is no institutional framework today for the center and the states to work together. This nobody writes about it, nobody comments about it. But the fact is that this federal structure which was created has been weakened. But secondly, and the more important thing, I think chapter 16 of the economic survey, which is a terrific chapter, all compliments to Anant Nageshwaran. The second part of chapter 16 is all about state capacity. By state, it's not state governments, but the center and the state. Today in India, the ability of governments to spend has gone down. You mentioned unspent budget just now.
8,000 crore.
He's talking about some states not spending. State capacity to spend has gone down.
Yes.
And this is a serious challenge which the government itself is recognizing. In fact, the economic survey talks about a major reform of government as the real challenge facing the country. It's not just, getting government out of business, but getting the government to function.
Why do you think it's not happening, Dr. Bharat?
I think there's a weakening of the talent pool within government, the weakening of political leadership within governments, and short-termism has taken over.
Short-termism also, that what they announced. For instance, Jaitley's 2017 budget spoke about creation of a cadre for panchayats and for municipalities.
That's right.
They never did anything about it.
Okay, let's go to Deepak
the urban
Shetty,
government
Chairman,
structure.
CII Council on Manufacturing Excellence, CEO and Managing Director, JCB India Limited. Thanks very much for joining us. Also joining us with Mr. Shetty is Narayan Sethuraman, Managing Director of Sanmar Engineering. Gentlemen, to both of you, your first reactions. First you, Mr. Shetty, will there be, I keep asking everyone from CII, will we see the animal spirits of the economy revive? Private investment is at a lower level than it was in 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to give you two reasons why. First of all, last few years we have seen the continuous focus on infrastructure development and the growth which has taken place thanks to it in the industry. I represent the construction equipment industry, which has improved by around 20% year on year last few years. One of the biggest challenge we were facing was in spite of being the third largest market in the world, we are importing a lot of components, a lot of machines from outside the country. We have been requesting the Honorable Finance Minister last few years, and we are very pleased and we really want to thank her for announcing the PLI scheme for production of critical components for the construction equipment industry. Initiatives like this are really going to bring the animal spirits, as you say, in the private sector investment. I'll just give an example. Thanks to this scheme, supported by the EU FTA, there'll be more and more European companies which will be encouraged to invest in India. And this will not only help in increasing the exports from India, but also bring down the cost of construction equipment. I also want to mention that the whole emphasis which has been given on the MSME sector, particularly from the manufacturing side, we have seen globally the whole development in the manufacturing sector has taken place not only by the investment by the big companies, but also by the smaller companies. Case in point is the whole Mittelstand that we have seen in Germany. I feel that with the recent announcements or the announcements which have been made and across the sector is going to help create a huge ecosystem from the MSME side, from the sustainable manufacturing side, and India now can really be the X country plus one option to the global industry. So very, very heartening from that particular point of view.
Yes, Mr. Shetty, but manufacturing sector has been a matter of concern for years now. Do you think the series of announcements which have come in, including deferred duty payment window to trusted manufacturers and also the customs, duty, exemption from basic custom duty on specified parts of certain, aircraft manufacturing, will this actually ensure investment in that sector and boost manufacturing overall?
No, I'm absolutely confident this will. And as somebody, we JCB exports from India to almost 135 countries around the world. The challenges we were facing, even in a small case, like for example, availability of containers, something very basic, we have been seeing challenge. We have been seeing challenge how whenever we move a container, say from Faridabad or from our Jaipur facility to the JNPT port in Mumbai, and the dedicated freight corridors, all of them are going to support this focus on easy to do business with from the export point of view, from the manufacturing point of view. There are a lot of SEZs which are
sorry to interrupt, sir,
across the country.
I'm just getting in Narayan Sethuraman. I want quick comments, sir. Your reactions to the budget. You're from Sanmar Engineering. Do you see that at least the budget has laid a vision for the future? It may not be a budget of today, but it's looking at a 10, 20-year horizon. That's its strength. Some would say that's its weakness as well.
Absolutely right. The budget is focused on the medium and long term. It's very pragmatic, growth-oriented and reform-oriented. From a Sanmar perspective, wherein chemicals and general engineering, chemicals has been announced as one of the strategic sectors with specific.
What is the reform, sir? Sorry to interrupt. When you say it's reform-oriented, let's be specific. What's that specific reform you've seen in this budget that encourages you?
A lot of, the process-oriented reforms. We were really not looking for big-ticket reforms, but reforms towards ease of doing business, whether it's, for example, electronic sealing, like Mr. Shetty mentioned, focus on advanced rulings to be binding on customs in 3 to 5 years. The focus, there's an emphasis on predictability for doing business and certainty. So a lot of these initiatives are there, it's interspersed in various announcements through the course of the budget speech, but it's all there.
Okay, so...
Go ahead, Maria.
Much of the process reforms that is being spoken about is probably part of the GABA report, the GABA committee report. What actually we are looking forward to is details from the Somnathan-led Center State Committee report on what can be done. So we constantly come to this, at any discussion ends at what are the states doing. And there is a political aspect to this that BJP rules in 15 of those states, and even there things are not the best in terms of like just now Siddharth read out who's using money better. I mean, turns out Telangana, which is Congress ruled state. So there is this aspect that has to be brought in. If the central government has an urbanization grand challenge fund of 1 lakh crore, there seems to be no impulse in any of the states to say, where is the money, how can we do it, whatever is doing. None of the cities, I haven't heard any city. And so there is like a distance between, and we spoke about the end of the National Development Council. Those kind of meetings don't happen. The Niti Aayog, ifs and buts, I mean, there is a sporadic effort to sort of come together.
But GST Council, when you look at it, that's where centre and states sit together.
No, but that's only pure revenue. What we are talking about is, what do you do with agriculture? What do you do?
In sector-wise.
So, I know there are so many new farmer producer corporations that have been created. So many cooperatives have been created. What is the correlation between the policy and the infra that is, the economic infra that is being created?
But in this budget, she's announced a lot of measures to do development in the states, in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Are you saying that those also won't happen because the government structure isn't there?
My worry is that the capacity of the states to execute a grand idea from the center is very limited. And India's government, and Dr. Baru and we have discussed this before, in India, the governments too many people are doing things that are not needed, and too few people are doing things that are needed. This is the general...
But if all these measures that she's announced for tier 2 and 3
in
cities...
fact, Prime Minister Modi will be giving his remarks on the budget in some time. So that soundbite will be coming in as well, because thereafter he heads for... Ravidas Jayanti.
Okay, I just we have some breaking news from Siddharth before we take a break.
I just want to quickly point out, and maybe Dr. Baru and Shankar both will come in. The 15th Finance Commission, in contrast to the previous one, the 16th one, has increased the weight for population from 15% to 17.5%. It has also parallelly reduced the demographic performance aspect from 12.5 to 10%. So Rajdeep, there is more minutiae, but this is going to, in some ways, lead to a debate, because the more people you have, the higher the devolution percentage will be. Shankar, you want to...
So this is the heart of the North-South divide. This is the heart of what Siddharamaiah and others have been saying.
Reactions as the fine print sinks in.
Siddharth, you use the wrong word. Not debate. This will lead to adjournments.
Okay.
You said, repeat that on demography, 12.5%.
So, in terms of the key criteria, population criteria has gone up to 17.5% versus 15. Demographics has gone down from 12.5 to 10. Area has gone down from 15 to 10%.
So that is the adjustment.
Forest ecology stays at 10%. Per capita income, distance and GSDP distance, a technical attribute, 45 down to 42.5. GDP contribution has been added as a new one at 10%. So effectively what this means is...
balance out.
Balance.
They're trying to balance it out. We'll wait and see to get reactions from chief ministers, but we need to take a break.
No, the last one actually is been created to help the southern states.
That's right. Yes.
Because
they are bigger.
Whether that will be enough to satisfy them, we'll wait and see. We need to take a break. We've been on live continuously since 9 in the morning. And it's been a long day. And there is still much more to nibble on.
सिग्निफिकेंट सिंप्लीफिकेशन किया गया है सेफ हार्बर और फास्ट ट्रैक एपीए के प्रोविजंस लाके। आने वाले समय में डेटा सेंटर्स बहुत बड़ी एक ताकत बनेंगे देश की, जिससे कि दुनिया भर को नई सर्विसेज और भारत के लिए नए एम्प्लॉयमेंट और एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के नए रास्ते खुलेंगे। तो डेटा सेंटर्स पे जो टैक्स हॉलीडे दिया, इसके लिए मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को और माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी को धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा। साथ ही साथ ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी जो हमारी क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी है, इसमें 20 लाख एम्प्लॉयमेंट नए बनाने के लिए क्रिएटर्स इकोनॉमी में आईआईसीटी मुंबई के साथ मिलकर 15,000 स्कूल और 500 कॉलेजेस में क्रिएटर्स लैब बनाने के लिए बजट में प्रोविजन किया गया है। और साथ ही साथ रेलवे के लिए 7 नए हाई स्पीड कॉरिडोर्स, चेन्नई से बेंगलुरु, चेन्नई से हैदराबाद, बेंगलुरु से हैदराबाद, मुंबई से पुणे, पुणे से हैदराबाद, दिल्ली से वाराणसी और वाराणसी से सिलीगुड़ी। एक तरीके से साउथ इंडिया में सदर्न ट्रायंगल बनेगा चेन्नई, बेंगलुरु, हैदराबाद का हाई स्पीड रेलवे का, बुलेट ट्रेन का। वैसे ही दिल्ली, वाराणसी, सिलीगुड़ी का एक नया हाई स्पीड कॉरिडोर बनेगा और साउथ वेस्ट को साउथ से जोड़ने वाला मुंबई से पुणे, पुणे से हैदराबाद का एक बहुत बड़ा मेजर कॉरिडोर बनेगा। साथ ही साथ आज बजट में एक नए डेडिकेटेड फ्रेट कॉरिडोर जो कि बंगाल में दांकुनी, वहां से गुजरात में सूरत, इसको जोड़ने वाला, ईस्ट को वेस्ट के साथ जोड़ने वाला नया डीएफसी भी सैंक्शन हुआ है। मैं इस बजट के लिए जो कि युवा शक्ति से प्रेरित है, जो कि विकसित भारत की एक मजबूत नींव बनाता है, जो कि समाज के हर वर्ग के लिए और देश के हर क्षेत्र के लिए विकास का एक नया माध्यम बना है, इसके लिए मैं माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी का अभिनंदन करता हूँ।
बजट में कितना लोकेशन किया गया?
Statement from Ashwini Vaishnav there, the Information and Broadcasting and IT and Railways Minister of the country. Just to take that point forward that we were discussing about state finances, about the need for states also to pull their weight. One of the concerns has been this huge South-North divide, or the South-West versus the North and East divide. And that is something that perhaps every government should be conscious of, because it can become a potential friction point in the future. There's not much that you can do in a budget beyond the point. But is there a need, therefore, perhaps for the Prime Minister to take the lead, get all these chief ministers together and find a way forward? Rather than you said a top-down approach doesn't work, for example, for urban governance.
No, but chief ministers who complain about these kind of inequalities or the problem with the distribution should also look at their own states. In Bihar,
No, that's fair enough.
Shevhar has a per capita income of 19,000. Patna has.
आज का बजट ऐतिहासिक है। इसमें देश की नारी शक्ति का सशक्त प्रतिबिंब झलकता है। महिला वित्त मंत्री के रूप में निर्मला जी ने लगातार 9वीं बार देश का बजट प्रस्तुत करके नया रिकॉर्ड बनाया है। ये बजट अपार अवसरों का राजमार्ग है। ये बजट वर्तमान के सपनों को साकार करता है और भारत के उज्जवल भविष्य की नींव को सशक्त करता है। ये बजट 2047 के विकसित भारत की हमारी ऊंची उड़ान का मजबूत आधार है। साथियों, आज भारत जिस रिफॉर्म एक्सप्रेस पर सवार है, इस बजट से उसे नई ऊर्जा, नई गति मिलेगी। जो पाथ ब्रेकिंग रिफॉर्म्स किए गए हैं, वो एस्पिरेशन से भरे हुए भारत के साहसिक, टैलेंटेड युवाओं को उड़ने के लिए खुला आसमान देते हैं। ये बजट ट्रस्ट बेस्ड गवर्नेंस और ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक अर्थरचना के विजन को साकार करता है। एक ऐसा यूनिक बजट है जिसमें फिस्कल डेफिसिट कम करने, इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल करने पर फोकस है और इसके साथ ही बजट में हाई कैपेक्स और हाई ग्रोथ का भी समन्वय है। साथियों, ये बजट भारत की वैश्विक भूमिका को नए सिरे से सशक्त करता है। भारत के 140 करोड़ नागरिक फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी बनकर ही संतुष्ट नहीं है। हम जल्द से जल्द दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनना चाहते हैं। ये करोड़ों देशवासियों का संकल्प है। दुनिया के एक ट्रस्टेड डेमोक्रेटिक पार्टनर और ट्रस्टेड क्वालिटी सप्लायर के रूप में भारत की भूमिका लगातार बढ़ रही है। हाल में जो बड़ी बड़ी ट्रेड डील्स भारत ने की है, मदर ऑफ ऑल डील्स, उसका मैक्सिमम बेनिफिट भारत के युवाओं को मिले, भारत के लघु और मध्यम उद्योग वालों को मिले, इस दिशा में बजट में बड़े बड़े कदम उठाए गए हैं। साथियों, इस बजट में मेक इन इंडिया और आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान को नई रफ्तार के लिए महत्वाकांक्षी रोड मैप प्रस्तुत किया गया है। इस बजट में नई उभरती इंडस्ट्रीज यानी सनराइज सेक्टर्स को जिस मजबूती के साथ समर्थन दिया गया है वह अभूतपूर्व है। बायोफार्मा शक्ति मिशन, सेमीकंडक्टर मिशन 2.0, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपोनेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग स्कीम, रेयर अर्थ कॉरिडोर का निर्माण, क्रिटिकल मिनरल्स पर बल, टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर में नई स्कीम, हाईटेक टूल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को बढ़ावा, चैंपियन एमएसएमईज तैयार करना, ये फ्यूचरिस्टिक है, देश की वर्तमान और भविष्य की आवश्यकताओं का ध्यान रखती है। एमएसएमईज को, हमारे लघु और कुटीर उद्योगों को जो समर्थन इस बजट में मिला है वह उन्हें लोकल से ग्लोबल बनने की नई ताकत देगा। साथियों, बजट में इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को मजबूत करने के लिए कई बड़े कदम उठाए गए हैं। डेडिकेटेड फ्रेट कॉरिडोर, देश भर में वाटरवेज का विस्तार, हाई स्पीड रेल कॉरिडोर, टियर 2 और टियर 3 शहरों के विकास पर विशेष ध्यान और शहरों को मजबूत आर्थिक आधार देने के लिए म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड्स को बढ़ावा। ये सारे कदम विकसित भारत की यात्रा की गति को और तेज करेंगे। साथियों, किसी भी देश की सबसे बड़ी पूंजी उसके नागरिक होते हैं। बीते वर्षों में हमारी सरकार ने देश के नागरिकों के सामर्थ्य को बढ़ाने पर अभूतपूर्व निवेश किया है। हमारा प्रयास स्किल, स्केल और सस्टेनेबिलिटी को निरंतर बल देने का रहा है। जैसा कि आज पार्लियामेंट में निर्मला जी ने कहा है, यह युवा शक्ति बजट है। उसमें युवा की सोच भी है, युवा के सपने भी हैं, युवा का संकल्प भी है और साथ साथ युवा की गति भी है। बजट में जो प्रावधान किए गए हैं उससे अलग अलग सेक्टर्स में लीडर्स, इनोवेटर्स और क्रिएटर्स तैयार होंगे। मेडिकल हब्स के निर्माण से, एलाइड हेल्थ प्रोफेशनल्स के माध्यम से, ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी यानी ऑडियो विजुअल गेमिंग को बढ़ावा देकर, पर्यटन को प्रोत्साहन देकर और खेलो इंडिया मिशन के माध्यम से युवाओं के लिए नए अवसरों के द्वार खुलेंगे। भारत को दुनिया का डेटा सेंटर हब बनाने के लिए टैक्स में बड़ी छूट की घोषणा भी की गई है। मैं भारत के युवाओं को विशेष तौर पर इस बजट की बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं, क्योंकि इससे एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन को बड़ा बूस्ट मिलेगा। मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि इस बजट में टूरिज्म और विशेषकर नॉर्थ ईस्ट में टूरिज्म को बढ़ावा देने के लिए भी ठोस कदम उठाए गए हैं। भारत के अलग अलग राज्यों को ताकतवर बनाकर संतुलित विकास की नींव भी इस बजट में मजबूत की गई है। साथियों, हमारे देश में 10 करोड़ से ज्यादा महिलाएं सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप से जुड़ी हैं और बड़ा सफल अभियान रहा है। महिलाओं द्वारा निर्मित, महिलाओं द्वारा संचालित सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स का आधुनिक इकोसिस्टम बने, बजट में इसे प्राथमिकता दी गई है। कोशिश यही है कि हर घर लक्ष्मी जी पधारे। हर जिले में छात्राओं के लिए नए हॉस्टल बनाने का अभियान भी शिक्षा को सुलभ बनाएगा। साथियों, भारत की कृषि, डेयरी सेक्टर, फिशरीज, इन्हें हमारी सरकार ने हमेशा सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता दी है। इस बजट में भी नारियल, काजू, कोको और चंदन की पैदावार से जुड़े किसानों के लिए अनेक अहम कदम उठाए गए हैं। भारत विस्तार एआई, इस टूल से किसानों को उनकी भाषा में जानकारी मिलने से उन्हें बहुत मदद मिलेगी। फिशरीज और पशुपालन में उद्यमिता, उसको बढ़ावा देने से गांव में ही रोजगार और स्वरोजगार के और ज्यादा अवसर बनेंगे। साथियों, ये बजट एम्बिशियस भी है और ये बजट देश की एस्पिरेशन को भी एड्रेस करता है। मैं एक बार फिर निर्मला जी और उनकी पूरी टीम को इस फ्यूचरिस्टिक बजट के लिए, संवेदनशील बजट के लिए, गांव, गरीब, किसान का कल्याण करने वाले बजट के लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Okay, there you have Prime Minister Narendra Modi saying that this is a budget which will take India into the future. The idea of a Atmanirbhar Bharat, a Vixit Bharat, underlines the budget's intent, and the Prime Minister expressing confidence that the budget in a way will boost the orange economy, as he calls it, and take India forward. So the Prime Minister making his intervention on the union budget, saying that it will be employment oriented, it will enhance specific sectors, for example, tourism, and that this budget therefore moves in the right direction. Coconut, sandalwood farmers, among others, to benefit. My colleague Abha Bakaya is joining us now. Abha, you track the markets very closely. I'm looking at the markets numbers now, 800 points down. The markets clearly have been completely spooked, presumably, by this higher security transaction tax. Is that alone, or is there something more to it?
It's both the SCT and the buyback change that's come in, with now buyback being seen as capital gains, which is not entirely negative, but the markets are primarily reacting to the SCT more than the buyback, but definitely both of these came as a bit of a shock. We've recovered, Rajdeep, almost 1,000 points as the markets digest this news, but still, as you can see on your screens, trending weak, so they're not too happy. And remember, today is a Sunday, so we'll actually see the true impact of the the budget play out tomorrow when it comes to money markets, when it comes to an FI reaction. I think all of that will really get processed and seen in trade tomorrow as well.
Was it just the STT or was there something more? Was there something they were expecting that didn't happen, or is it the fact that you have a higher security transaction tax alone that has led to such a big fall in the markets?
So I think it's primarily the STT, even though there will always be, further measures that they would have liked to see, further ways to enhance FI participation, even though a lot has been already done, or signaled in this particular budget. But I think primarily the STT this time around on the reef.
I'm curious about the buyback thing, the conversion of buyback into a taxable proposition. Punita, is there any history, Abha, you also, is there a history? Why would you sort of enter? This is really SEBI's domain. And, you introduce a tax provision saying that if you buy back, that will be treated as a capital gains. Now, I am wondering whether there has been any misuse of the provision of buyback by any company.
Punita, I'll let you come in, but I think there's also a lot of concern for some of the companies where you have non-promoter holdings. And I think this makes it a lot clearer for them, where it now gets treated as a capital gains tax as opposed to everything else. So I think it helps in that case particularly. But Punita, I'd love to get your thoughts.
No, I'm just going to compare this to what is happening in the US, as President Trump has also changed the taxes on buybacks, because his goal was that companies shouldn't buy back, they should reinvest into the sector and use the money for innovation.
Yeah, for defense companies he did that.
Yeah, and so I think what is happening here is that most of the buybacks are happening largely by IT services companies. That's the biggest chunk of our buybacks. Does this mean directionally that our IT companies, by putting this tax, you maybe are disincentivizing them for buybacks and wanting them to reinvest? And maybe they should, because right now Indian IT companies globally are being seen as laggards. And have lost the plot on innovation, is what FII view.
Or the IPOs that happened last year, where a lot of the promoting entities got exits. 63 or 64% of the IPOs were all about check encashment stories. Whether this blocks them, I'm not very convinced about the logic of this.
Rajiv, you want to tell us what your thoughts are? Why is it that the markets have got so spooked?
So it has got to do with the tax on the futures and options, the extra STT.
That's primarily the reason.
I would attribute it to that, yes.
Okay. I'm joined at this moment by Vivek Singh, economist, former banker and columnist. Also, Shrivar Kheruka is co-chairman, FICCI Manufacturing Committee and managing director, Borosil. Appreciate both of you joining us. Vivek, your first reactions to this budget. You heard the Prime Minister just now saying it is employment oriented, it will kickstart jobs in specific sectors, mentioned tourism. Do you believe this sectoral approach works in a budget, or should there have been perhaps something more dramatic that would really give the kind of impetus to the economy across the board?
I think it's a fairly balanced and forward-looking budget. And given the kind of overhauling we already had in the income tax slabs last year, and then the GST regime, I really thought there was very little appetite for further tax cuts or for populism. And the budget this time is largely predictable. It stays true to the themes of Vixit Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bharat, while taking concrete steps on employment. I'll also describe it as an institution-building budget in many ways, because it talks about a new National Institute of Design. It talks about a new National Institute of Mental Health and Neurological Sciences. Also talks about an AIIMS-like institution in the Ayurveda sector. And then talks about specific content creator-led interventions in 15,000 schools all over the country. So many interesting steps, but largely a balanced budget, and stays true to the glide path set by the finance minister as far as fiscal deficit is concerned.
Let's come back to manufacturing and the kind of capex that we've looked at there. And Shrivar Kheruka also joining us. Shrivar, let me get your perspective on how much of a boost this is going to be when it comes to furthering the capacity that we have for efficient manufacturing, for our export hubs, and so on and so forth. Clearly, an emphasis that has been placed on this and much required.
Yeah, well, I think the government itself has a target that by 2047 for Vixit Bharat, we need to have 25% of GDP coming from manufacturing, which actually, if you look at the numbers, it means that manufacturing has to expand 16 times in the next 22 years in order for the government to achieve its own target. That's a very, high growth rate. That's the expectation. And I guess the budget is trying to move in that direction, whether it's the emphasis on container manufacturing or biopharma or the mining and the rare earths corridors that they've established. Even the electronics manufacturing 20,000 crore boost is in addition to what was announced a few years ago. I think all of these are really going to promote manufacturing in India. I mean, speaking from my own experience, we have seen many products that earlier were being imported from China or from the rest of the world actually being made in India today. Mobile phones also one example. So I think it's a step in the in the right direction.
Okay. Mr. Mukundan,
we are also joined by R. Mukundan, President Designate CII, Managing Director and CEO Tata Chemicals. Mr. Mukundan, your first reactions to it is it's a question I will continue to ask all those from industry. What will it take to get private investment back on track? Yes, there have been some green shoots in the last 6 months, but we are still below 2019 figures.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, the whole point which you highlighted that this budget actually, what I said in the morning, it builds forward. It's not, we didn't expect a big bang. We wanted a build forward budget and focus mostly on exports. I think this does the right thing with three priorities. One priority is on building scale. The second one is very unique. How do we sort of rejuvenate some of the industrial parks? How do you bring technology into them so that the manufacturing in the legacy sites actually has greater competitiveness? And thirdly, a focus on MSME. All these three put together will continue to boost investments and make sure that we are very competitive. In terms of scaling manufacturing, of course, much more targeted, which is exactly what we were saying, whether it's semiconductor, critical minerals, rare earth, and chemical parks. I think that a slew of issues there. On MSME, I think clearly the equity investment support, the credit support, linking gems with trades are all the right steps, both from demand side as well as giving them support in terms of equity as well as credit for working capital. The other area which this budget does.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whatever,
yes, sir. Sorry, Mr. Mukundan, please complete.
Yeah, the other area which this budget does do is that wherever the targeted indirect tax benefit has been given, it's been given for green investments. You talk about sodium antimonate for solar glass. You talk about the aggregates needed for lithium cell, nuclear power plant. Then it talks about biogas, CNG. So and also, for example, for the hard to abate sectors, whether it be power plant, whether it be steel, chemical sectors, the whole issue of carbon capture. I think this budget actually picks a very big theme, which is theme of green and greening the economy.
So every year in the budget, there's always one industry that complains. And I think this time she's really tried to make it holistic, although I'm sure there's still some that have felt neglected. And the tourism industry is one that's been waiting consistently for a few years in a row. They've always felt neglected. It may not have been possibly covering all aspects of what the hospitality and tourism industry have asked from the finance minister till now, but yet a major fillip, and that's one segment that's definitely going to be buzzing. We've also got the communications minister, Jyotiraditya Scindia, sharing his reaction to the budget. Let's listen into that.
इस वक्त हमारे साथ बातचीत करने के लिए हैं केंद्रीय मंत्री ज्योतिरादित्य सिंधिया। सर, आप बजट पेश जब हो रहा था उस वक्त आप अंदर मौजूद थे। क्या सबसे बेस्ट चीज आपको इस बजट की लगी? निर्मला सीतारमण जी का 9th स्ट्रेट बजट था ये।
देखिए, स्पष्ट रूप से यह बजट भारत की पिछले 12 साल की सफर को मजबूती से संगठित करता है और विकसित भारत 2047 का भविष्य का निर्माण स्थापित करता है। और जहां एक मजबूती दी गई है हमारे अधोसंरचना के लिए, हमारे कैपेक्स के लिए, जहां ग्रोथ 7.5% तक पहुंच चुका है, महंगाई पर पूरी तरह से कंट्रोल 1.7% पिछले 9 महीने में, जो एक भारत का रिकॉर्ड रहा है, और वहीं फिस्कल डेफिसिट भी पूर्ण रूप से कंट्रोल में है। वहीं इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर कैपेक्स में जो 2 लाख करोड़ होता था 2014-15 में, आज बढ़कर 11 लाख करोड़ हो गया है और अगले साल 12 लाख करोड़ तक हम लोग ले जाएंगे। इसी के साथ जो 3 कर्तव्य हैं, एक इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ को मेंटेन करना, दूसरा सभी की आशाएं और अभिलाषाओं को पूर्ण रूप से संकलित करना और तीसरा सबका साथ और सबका विकास, स्वास्थ्य के क्षेत्र में, शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में और उसी के साथ जो मैंने आपको कहा भविष्य का निर्माण मतलब ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी, हमारे सेमीकंडक्टर्स, हमारा ऑडियो विजुअल, गेमिंग सेक्टर, हमारा आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस सेक्टर, हमारा पर्यटन का सेक्टर जिससे रोजगार भी उत्पन्न हो पाते हैं और हमारा शहरीकरण, क्योंकि भारत तेजी से शहरीकरण की तरफ भी जा रहा है। तो इन सब चीजों को रेखांकित करके एक बहुत ही मजबूत बजट वित्त मंत्री जी ने पेश किया है और तहे दिल से मैं उनको धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं क्योंकि टेलीकॉम सेक्टर में बजट में बहुत बढ़ोतरी हुई है और डोनर सेक्टर में भी बढ़ोतरी दी गई है। उन्होंने उत्तर पूर्वी क्षेत्र को रेखांकित किया है जहां शहरीकरण में 4000 ई बसेस दी जा रही हैं, जहां 5 बुद्धिस्ट सर्किट्स दी जा रही हैं, जहां स्वास्थ्य के क्षेत्र में, शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में निवेश किया जा रहा है, इनलैंड लॉजिस्टिक्स का पूर्ण नक्शा बनाया जा रहा है ताकि इन 8 राज्यों को जो प्रधानमंत्री जी कहते हैं देश की अष्टलक्ष्मी है, भारत का ग्रोथ इंजन बना।
कौन सी बात आपको लगती है जो बजट के अंदर है जो भारत को विकसित भारत बनने में मदद करेगी?
भारत उस रास्ते पर निकल चुका है प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में। अगर आप देखें पिछले 12 वर्षों में जो विश्व की 10वीं सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था थी, आज 4थी बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बन चुकी है। अगले साल तक 3री सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बन जाएगी और प्रधानमंत्री जी और वित्त मंत्री जी भारत को भविष्य के लिए भी पोजीशन कर रहे हैं। जो भविष्य के क्षेत्र होंगे उनमें नेतृत्व भारत को करना होगा, चाहे वो एआई हो, चाहे वो सेमीकंडक्टर्स हो, चाहे वो ऑरेंज इकोनॉमी हो, चाहे वो पर्यटन हो, पूरे विश्व को भारत के प्रति हमको आकर्षित करना है।
एक आखिरी प्रश्न मैं लूंगा, आप इसको भविष्य का बजट बता रहे हैं, आप इसको विकसित भारत का बजट बता रहे हैं, लेकिन कांग्रेस पार्टी विपक्ष के कई नेता वो कह रहे हैं कि इसमें कुछ भी नहीं है, 0% सन्नाटा है, कुछ भी नहीं किया।
जो कांग्रेस पार्टी भारत को डेड इकोनॉमी कहती है जी, भारत पर लांछन लाने के लिए कोई अवसर छोड़ती नहीं। उस पार्टी के बारे में हम क्या चर्चा करें जिस पार्टी को देश की जनता ने ही त्याग कर दिया है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद
जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। इस बात बोलते हुए ज्योतिरादित्य सिंधिया जो केंद्रीय मंत्रियों ने कहा कि ये बजट विकसित भारत का बजट है, भविष्य का बजट है और इससे आगे आने वाले समय में इकोनॉमी को भी मदद मिलेगी। मेरे सहयोगी अंकित सिंह के साथ मैं पीयूष मिश्रा, दिल्ली, आज तक।
Interesting the jibe that Jyotiraditya Scindia had presumably on Rahul Gandhi, who remember had echoed what an official in the US Trump administration, Peter Navarro, had said about a dead economy and saying that targeting the Congress party there. It's interesting that you've got now more and more of the guests speaking about individual sectors.
Yes.
And what has been done for specific sectors, Shankar. So, as we said at the outset, that's the direction. You were the one, Shankar, who made the contentious comment that this is a Pranab Mukherjee style budget. I mean, you said this reminded you of Pranab Mukherjee.
Yeah, the minutiae that was read in part B reminded me of a Pranab Mukherjee budget. But I said that this is, I still think that this is a fill in the blanks budget. So it has gone and filled in the gaps in various sectors, in the processes of reforms across the sectors. And then I think the Prime Minister, for instance, did a fantastic job in explaining the budget in his first sentence where he said, this is a highway for growth budget. And then this is the kind of articulation that was needed in the budget.
Okay, but just to give us, kind of reality check, PM internship scheme budget estimate last year was 10,831 crores. Revised estimate is just 526 crores. Allocation this year is 4,788 crores. You see, the details are useful, but there are other details also. You announce schemes, and then when those schemes don't really take off, that's when concern. Let me bring in Shashwat Goenka, Vice Chairman, RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. He's also President of CI. Appreciate. Dr. Vikramjit Sahni is joining us, Rajya Sabha MP and member Parliamentary Standing Committee, Ministry of Commerce. But first, Shashwat, to you, your first reactions to this. Again, that same question. Will this really trigger any kind of enthusiasm among investors? The markets have given it a thumbs down. but will investors, particularly in certain core sectors, feel a little bit more enthusiastic?
Old when I see these kids. Hi, Rajdeep. So when I look at today's budget was centered around fiscal prudence. And I think the Honorable Finance Minister did a fantastic job of laying out what are the growth parameters for our economy to continue to grow at the growth numbers that we have been growing at over the last couple of quarters. So whether you look at the conversations around manufacturing, the conversation around social infrastructure or overall public infrastructure, whether you look at whether it was on energy security, I think each of these goes a long way in propelling India forward much faster. And when that happens, investment is going to happen. And when investment is going to happen, investors are going to be happy. I don't know if that answers it, but in a nutshell.
All right. No, it definitely indicates how the industry is looking at this. And I think the fact that you're positive on the investments coming in, that's a huge sign because...
But let me be cynical. The industry always gives 11 on 10 on budget day and doesn't put its money where its mouth is. You see, Shashwat, that's my problem with all of you. Y'all come on budget day because you've got to make the finance minister feel, look good. Why don't you all put, the government has given so many incentives to industry over the last 5-6 years. You've just not walked the talk. Let's be very honest.
But I completely agree. And Shashwat, do you think it will be different this time? And if so, why?
I can speak for myself. And when you look at us over the next 5 to 7 years, we have a $10 billion commitment for investment. This is across our sectors of energy, of chemicals, of IT-enabled services, and our other sectors as well.
Okay, I'm going to probe Shashwat a little bit more in a minute, but Vinita, you have a point.
Two things I want to mention. First of all, on the budget, there's more for FDI than FIIs. That's one point. Second, when everyone says, why is the private sector not investing? Now, I'm putting on my board hat.
Yes.
When companies come to boards and saying, we want to put in more capex, our natural question is, what is your return on investment? Are you going to get enough investment? And therefore, only then we'll approve your budgets. So the companies will only do capex when they see that their capacity is going to yield better returns and there's going to be enough demand. And that demand stimulus is coming from the government or needs to come from the government and from PLI schemes and other incentives. To the extent the government doesn't provide that, the private sector cannot invest much.
But do you think enough has been done on the supply side this time? Because they've clearly tried to outline certain measures on the supply side.
Well, they've done it in some sectors which are like MSMEs and, as I said, tourism and education. And so there will be capex in those areas potentially, not so much in the traditional manufacturing sector. Electronics, yes. Data centers, yes. Real estate maybe will benefit from data centers. So there'll be sector-specific capex that will happen.
Got it.
Okay, let's bring in at this moment Vikramjit Sahni. Vikramjit Sahni, you're on the Parliamentary Standing Committee of Commerce, Rajya Sabha MP. Your first reactions.
Yeah, Rajdeep, I think FM in the beginning, in the preamble said from Kartavya Path, 3 Kartavyas: sustain economic growth, resilience, because we have global winds and we are worried that we may not have, God willing, the situation of 2008 again. But the appreciable announcements were biopharma, as you were saying, biological pharma and strengthening the drug control. Semiconductor mission, 40,000 crore is much needed, but down the line, like we have a semiconductor wafer facility lying idle or unutilized in Mohali, we hope we'll get some funds. Rare earth mineral corridor is good. The game changer can be container manufacturing, because we have seen in COVID, the freights had gone 100x. And MSME equity support for 10,000 crore. One major thing in the infra side, which have been fellow person, my colleagues have said, is the REIT, the real estate, the REIT for PSUs. We all know the large infra lands, unutilized lands are with our public sector enterprises. So if it is properly utilized, like we have seen in case of Aero City, and public infrastructure funds, and also the developing instead of the big cities, because smart city scheme have not taken off as well, as you were also saying. So maybe let us try the tier 2, tier 3 cities kind of thing. And appreciable is that FM have been able to maintain the fiscal deficit at 4.4%, going up to 4.3%. Global investment, 10-year tax holiday for foreign companies providing cloud computing. But I'm not sure that with the changes in the modification to the tech companies, GCC companies will come or not. But one thing, nothing was on agriculture, nothing on agriculture tech, on agri-food processing and crop diversification. I think that have been missed out. Thank you.
Abba.
Okay, let me also bring in Mr. Pranav Satya, who's Chair FICCI Taxation Committee, and I'll go across to him on all the taxes first, but just to clarify on the buyback bit, to explain it a little better. Earlier, buybacks were taxed as dividend income, now they'll be taxed as capital gains. So for a minority investor, only actual gains are taxed, so it's actually better for them. You have a lot of non-promoter holdings, particularly in those IPOs and so forth that you were talking about. So it's a little technical, but that's really the aim over there. Pranav, thanks so much for joining us. Want to get your view on some of the key measures taken on the taxation front. STT, of course, has come as a huge shock to markets. No changes, of course, on the other indirect measures, which, we've, of course, seen a whole slew of announcements last year. What's your overall assessment of the budget?
Been brought into shock.
You're on mute, Pranav. You're on mute. Yeah. Pranav, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think we have to view this budget in the backdrop of all that has happened over the last 1 year, maybe, from the drop in the direct tax rates for individuals, the GST rationalization, and so on. So I think this budget, one would not have expected any big bang things, but I think it spells continuity, stability, to some extent simplicity as well, and an effort to continue the journey of building taxpayer trust and friendliness. So, for example, if we talk of the way in which they have tried to expand the safe harbor network, I think especially for GCCs, there is a thrust in this budget on services as well, other than manufacturing, which continues. And therefore, we find that there's a lot of certainty, clarity. They are trying to merge IT services in all the GCCs, the contract R&D manufacturers, software development into one. Significantly expanded the safe harbor threshold from 300 crores to 2,000 crores, significantly ensured that there will be a time-bound resolution of an advanced pricing agreement. So I think foreign direct investments, particularly in the IT services space and GCC space, I think would certainly be encouraged by these moves. Also, if you look at... Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. We've just got Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition's reaction. He says in a tweet, youth without jobs, falling manufacturing, investors pulling out capital, household savings plummeting, farmers in distress, looming global shocks, all ignored, a budget that refuses course correction, blind to India's real crises. Now, you could argue that's an extreme position that Rahul Gandhi has taken, but Shankar Iyer, when you look at some of, does the opposition have an alternative idea? The problem that the opposition seems to face, it's one thing to criticize the government and say that this budget isn't addressing the real issues. What could the government have done, or what should the opposition be really doing that would give a sense that maybe they have a better plan for the Indian economy?
The British system has this shadow cabinet idea.
That's right, which for some reason we don't want to
do. And so I've written about this 2-3 times, that why don't you present your shadow budget? Even tomorrow, now that all the numbers are there, this is what we would have done with this money, and this is how we've done. Rahul Gandhi has one point. So we have seen sectoral initiatives in this budget. And probably agriculture, they could have looked at in opening it up, maybe modernizing it or whatever. There are some aspects and some aspects are not there. So the budget looks at livestock, fisheries, coconuts, but I think somewhere...
I want to argue here as well that I'm not sure they're looking at increasing savings. They're trying to increase spending from a market and economy standpoint. Right now, the whole emphasis is on consumers actually.
But that is a very big problem, because the share of GDP to labor and the share of GDP to capital, the share of GDP to capital is expanding exponentially, whereas the share of growth or income to the labor, which is people who work, has gone down. And this is something that the corporate sector has to address.
The opposition does give us occasionally a glimpse of their ideas in the state elections, right? They say what they want to do. In the Bihar election, somebody had said government job for every single household. So bizarre ideas are floated like that every now and then.
I mean, but I sometimes, I think we should separate election victories from the state of the economy. I think the economy deserves, a far more focus, ideally bipartisan, that's not possible, but there are questions that, need to be answered by the opposition in providing a blueprint for the union budget in future. It would be useful if, someone, and the opposition not short of fine economic minds, if you brought them together on a table and they gave us what their budget would be, it would be interesting. At least it would trigger a debate.
Absolutely. The question that one could ask Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party is that what have Congress ruled states done on exactly those 7 or 8 points that they made?
Good point. Good point. Okay, we've got a sponsor commitment.
Yes.
Okay, we've got a sponsor commitment to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. Abha's got plenty more on the other side. You're watching our special coverage.
Got you dancing, now we go back and forth steady with the prancing.
Everything's new except the attitude. The all-new Seltos, badass forever.
Kia, movement that inspires.
Introducing Motorola's signature.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman would be to maintain stability amidst volatile geo-economic situation.
What will this budget mean for the average taxpayer and the common citizen?
And how will the reforms expressed continue to be on track in 2026?
Join my colleagues Maria Shakil and Siddharth Zarabi budget coverage of Modinomics 2026.
See you there.
A renewed emphasis on the service sector to provide a pathway to fulfilling aspirations of a youthful India with the following measures. I propose to set up a high-powered education to employment and enterprises standing committee to recommend measures that focus on services sector as a core driver of Vixit Bharat. This will make us a global leader in services with a 10% global share by 2047. The committee will prioritize areas to optimize the potential for growth, employment, and exports.
go back and forth steady with the plans and
Everything's new except the attitude. The all-new Seltos. Badass forever.
Kia, movement that inspires.
Introducing Motorola's signature.
We have pursued far-reaching structural reforms, fiscal prudence and monetary stability, whilst maintaining a strong thrust on public investment. Keeping Atmanirbharta as a lodestar, we have built domestic manufacturing capacity, energy security, and reduced critical import dependencies. Simultaneously, we have ensured that citizens benefit from every action of the government, undertaking reforms to support employment generation, agricultural productivity, household purchasing power, and universal services to people. These measures have delivered a high growth rate of around 7% and helped us make substantial strides in poverty reduction and improvement in the lives of our people. Reform Express. Our government has undertaken comprehensive reforms towards creating employment, boosting productivity, and accelerating growth. After the Prime Minister